What's up, Onii-Chan? Onii-Chan Enghan here, and in this video, we're venturing into the hilariously enthralling universe of Mashle, Magic and Muscles. We're picking up right where the Season 1 of the anime has left us, at the closure of the Magia Lupus arc, and now stepping into the excitement that immediately follows, the gripping Mashle execution and Divine Visionary selection exam arc. This is a story arc that, in my personal opinion, is an absolute standout, a thrilling adventure filled with revelations, emotional intensity, and character growth that paints the most vivid and insightful pictures of our beloved characters yet. Today, we'll be unpacking the intricate details of this arc, the heart-stopping moments, the grueling challenges, and the staggering character development that makes this portion of Mashle not only unforgettable, but also fundamental in understanding the wider narrative. And of course, if you're new to our community and are eager to see more deep dives like this one, make sure you click on that subscribe button. Don't forget to leave a like on the video as well. Your support genuinely assists in boosting the visibility of my content and helps introduce new and enthusiastic viewers to our growing family. But enough preamble. It's time we dive headlong into the exhilarating world of Mashle as we start unraveling the mysteries of the Mashle execution and Divine Visionary selection exam arc. Hold on tight because we're in for a magical ride.
Continuing the exciting story of Mash in a world full of magic. Let's turn to the base of Ennis in Zero. There, we see Selwar apologizing for being late in returning. However, he says he's found what they've been looking for. The person he's talking to states that because of this, he will be able to achieve his wish. He orders Selwar to retrieve it. Let's go back to the past when the news about Mash's inability to use magic started to spread. While that's happening, all the coins of the school went to Adler, signifying that Mash and his friends were getting closer to becoming Divine Visionaries. Mash and Finn are having a conversation, and our protagonist says he's happy that they resolved that problem quickly. He suggests that it's time for their victory celebration. Finn asks whether they've really solved it. Suddenly, it's shown that our heroes are trying to convince others that Mash really does have magic by shouting at the person until they give in. At least not everyone in the school knows the truth. As Finn is speaking, someone suddenly shouts and calls out Mash's name. The man asks if it's true that Mash can't use magic, whereupon Finn thinks that they are done for. Mash replies that he knows how to use magic. Mash kept repeating his claim until his mind seemed to short-circuit. It seems like his brain shut down. Finn comments that what they taught Mash seems to be working. The man tells him not to lie because everyone already knows and that he's facing a very big problem. Finn then pulls Mash to leave. Suddenly, the man says that protecting a non-magic user will cause trouble for Finn. Because of this, Finn stops. The man continues that Finn may still be a student now, but due to his actions, he could also be expelled, and Finn probably knows this. Finn remains silent. The man continues to assert that Mash cannot use magic and he should stop lying. He questions what the point of protecting a no-magic blight blood like Mash is. Finn yells at the man to shut up, saying it's his decision who he wants to be with. Suddenly, the man is seen face down on the floor when Finn looks back. Finn is surprised because he has just found the courage to speak up, but when he turns back, this is what has happened to the man. It turns out that it was Lance who knocked the man down. The man angrily asks why Lance did that. Lance replies that it's because the man angered him. Mash celebrates because of the display of sibling love. The man then says that Lance is crazy. Suddenly, others arrive. These are Lemon and Dot, and it shows that Dot is completely bandaged and in a wheelchair. Lemon explains that those injuries are more severe than they thought. He has 6 broken ribs, a fractured skull, compound fractures on his hands and feet, blood blisters, and damage to various organ systems. Dot tries to speak, but he can only make sounds. The man stands there in shock. Finally, he just runs away, saying that they are lucky because he's letting them off. In the next scene, after their class, Mash and his friends have a celebration inside Adler dorm room 302. Mash says that now that they have Lang's coins, they can breathe and relax until the Divine Visionary selection starts. Finn is thinking again, feeling that they are setting aside a big issue. In addition, it shows that Abyss and Abel are also at their celebration. Finn wonders why they are there as well. He looks at Abel and notices that Abel never puts down the doll he's holding. Suddenly, Abel hands something over, which surprises Finn. Abel takes out a deck of cards and asks if anyone wants to play. Finn thinks to himself, never mind, it seems like Abel really wants to party. Abel states that he didn't intend to befriend them, but as their senior, he can celebrate for Abyss's recovery with them. Finn thinks that Abel shouldn't have said that. Suddenly, Abyss speaks up and says that anyone who dares to beat Abel in a card game will die by his hands. Finn is surprised and wonders how that is supposed to be fun. Lemon tells Abyss not to say such things and hands him a cup of tea. Abyss is stunned, which makes Lemon wonder. He tries to say thank you and then starts shaking like a fool. He suddenly explodes with nervousness. Abel explains to Lemon that Abyss has little experience with women, to the point where even saying the word girl is difficult for him. Meanwhile, Dot continues to make noise. Love is taking Doe's food, saying, "What's yours is mine, and what's mine is mine." Lemon tells Mash that she will serve him as a thank you for what he's done. Mash thanks her and says that he can eat on his own. Suddenly, Lemon freaks out, causing food to splatter onto Mash. After that, while Lemon is cleaning up Mash, she asks Lance where he was when all the chaos was happening. Lance explains that after his fight with the Lang student, he ran into some death row inmates. Finn remains quiet as his companions each do their own thing at the table. Suddenly, Abyss calls out to Mash, and Mash turns to look at him. Abyss thanks Mash for inviting them and warns him. He says that Innocent Zero is focusing on Mash. They are the worst criminal organization in the world. They are looking for the most unfortunate magic user in their school. In exchange for Abel's help, they gave him power. Abel's third line is artificial, part of their gift to him. Natural triple linners are supposedly even more powerful than Abel. Abel needed the coins, that's why he borrowed power from them. A sacrifice for the greater good. But it seems that Mash has a connection to whoever they are looking for. He should be careful as they will surely return. They need to face the punishment for what they've done. That's what they deserve for disregarding the environment. Abel just wants to create a world where good people, like his mother, can live peacefully. He thanks Mash very much for stopping him. He also said that he thinks he could build such a world where everyone can live in peace. That's what Abyss wants to see. Mash nodded in agreement. While this was happening, the man from earlier returned to confront Mash. He declared that he was no longer scared and was now going to get proof that Mash couldn't use magic. As he peeked into the room, he saw Abyss talking to Mash and recognized him as the second best of Lang. He wondered why Abyss was with Mash. Suddenly, someone arrived behind him, and when he turned around, it turned out to be Abel, who asked if he needed anything there. He trembled in fear, wondering why Abel was there and recognizing him as the top dog of Lang. He screamed while Abyss shivered again due to Lemon asking what they were discussing. After those events, it was explained what divine visionaries are. They are the foremost magic users in the world and the force that keeps it running. They handle most of the work related to magic, but they also have a role as a state-sanctioned force that protects society against those who would try to disrupt it. To symbolize their role as servants of the divine, they are given titles that mark them as wands of God. After that, we go to the Bureau of Magic, where Mash is on trial concerning rumors that he concealed his magicless status from them. It showed the events one day before he arrived there, while Mash was with his friends, and Owl suddenly arrived with the letter. Upon opening it, Lemon and Abyss were surprised because he was indeed summoned to the Bureau of Magic. We return to the present. He is being spoken to by Blessed Minister, the Vice Director of the Bureau of Magic. He said that Mash hiding his condition is a serious crime. And what's more, it was not discovered during their enrollment. Mash was just staring at him. Bless asked Mash if he knows who created their world. Mash answered the question with a question, asking if it was some big shot. Bless said that it was God who created their world for them. And as God's creation, the world is a thing of beauty. The same goes for magic. Magic is a miracle given by God to people only. But there's someone threatening that beautiful miracle. And that person is Mash. Mash was puzzled by this. Does Mash understand that he is a bug in the system and needs to be addressed immediately before he disrupts the order of things? Mash is still puzzled. Mash may understand, but what if things don't always have to be perfect? Bless shouted at this point, saying that it's not in Mash's hands to decide. Suddenly, someone interrupted and said that there's no such thing as unshakable confidence. Bless was surprised. The man said that in the end, only success is important. What he needs is not confidence, but self-belief. Mash has the potential to become a real man. It turns out that this man is the Light Cane, Ryo Grants, the Magic Security Forces captain. Bless called him Lord Visionary and asked what he was doing there. It's not important, Ryo said, and asked if his question to Mash was correct, to which Mash agreed. However, they all follow the rules there, rules that fit the majority. If they tried to accommodate everyone, they wouldn't have stability. So, what can be done when he is not part of the majority? It's simple. He needs to convince the majority to support him. Mash doesn't need to be right. What matters is who's speaking, and he suddenly threw something. He threw a candle, which puzzled Mash. Ryo then told Mash to light the candle without touching it. Without touching it? Mash asked. The man confirmed and explained that magic is the most important thing in their world, so Mash needs to show a miracle stronger than magic. Is it truly manly? If yes, Mash should show it. Mash just stared at it. Bless thought it was nonsense. Ordering a non-magic user to light a candle from a distance. Suddenly, Mash brought out a wand. What could a non-magic user do with a wand? Mash then sat down casually. Ryo was criticized for giving Mash an impossible task, making him surrender. Suddenly, Mash started spinning the wand on the floor, which puzzled Bless. He realized that Mash was rubbing the wand on the floor at an extraordinary speed, even though it was a marble floor. Because of this, Mash created fire using friction. Soon, Mash was able to light the candle. Mash seemed to understand. He would change that world, using his fists. Ryo was pleased and commented on Mash's spirit. Suddenly, someone announced that the Divine Visionaries had arrived. They were informed that they would be dealing with a magicless student. A man directed them to the examination room. One was silent, another was complaining while being calmed by another. One was wondering what Wahlberg was thinking while another was feeling cold. One said that they exist to maintain order, and there are no exceptions. We returned to the Bureau of Magic, where he overcame Ryo's challenge. Mash stated there that it looked like they were going to end the trial. Bless shouted and said that the decision was not in Mash's hands. Suddenly, sand started to coil around Mash's feet. Before long, another attack followed, engulfing Mash. Bless was puzzled there, and Ryo recognized who did it. It turned out that Mash was fine, and he asked what was happening. Suddenly, the other Divine Visionaries arrived and said that Mash must have thought his trial was over. Someone wondered why the Divine Visionaries were there. The Immortal Cane, Renatus Revel, answered that Wahlberg had summoned them there. The Ice Cane, Sorara Hailstone, suggested they should just hit him with a book to get it over with. The Noisy Flame Cane, Kaldo Gehenna, was also introduced. The Quiet Divine Visionary was the Dragon Cane, Ajit O Iron. The Knowledge Cane, Sofina Babila, stated that according to regulations, she believed that being lenient was the smartest way. And finally, the Desert Cane, or Termato, said that regulations were intended to remind people of different perspectives in their lives. If they allowed exceptions, the system would break down. Moreover, surrendering to their emotions as compatriots in the kingdom would set a bad example. This would suggest that special circumstances were recognized. Not only did Mash hide his inability to use magic, but he also enrolled in Easton Academy. And because of that, death was the most appropriate punishment for Mash. In those moments, our hero was shocked and depressed. If it could be of any comfort to Mash, the decision was unanimous. Suddenly, Bless approached and said that this was not acceptable. He started to shake and seemed to lose control of himself. The Divine Visionaries and Mash turned their attention to him. He started speaking as if he was possessed, and before long, he said, "We are Innocent Zero." Mash and the Divine Visionaries became serious. Innocent Zero stated that they owned Mash, so they shouldn't touch him. The Divine Visionaries were surprised because Innocent Zero was involved, and Mash's origin indeed seemed extraordinary. Mash declared that no one owned him except himself. Revel asked whether Mash thought anyone still cared about that. Innocent Zero was serious, and as proof, they had implanted a Magi parasite in Bless. Onii-Chan was surprised, and Mash asked who this was. Then, it was explained what a Magi parasite was. The Magi parasite is a very delicate magical creature that consumes mana while using its host as a chrysalis while it is in its larval stage. and if it is removed, it will attach itself to whoever removed it from the initial host. They would consider that as a statement of intent towards them. They claimed ownership of that world. Ryo then commented, asking if they were declaring war against the Bureau because of this, and if they were itching to end their long-standing feud. If so, he would be the one to remove the Magi parasite. Neri stated how risky that would be. The stronger the magic user the Magi parasite attaches to, the greater the danger. If the parasite gets him, he would be crystallized immediately. Ryo asked who else should do it as Mash approached. Suddenly, Mash pulled out the Magi parasite as if it were nothing. Because of this, Ryo was shocked. The parasite then entered Mash. Ryo was taken aback while Mash was choking. Nevertheless, Mash vomited out the parasite. It ended up looking like a balloon animal dog. Neri was stunned by what Mash had done. Others yelled out, asking what had just happened. Indeed, the parasite had entered Mash's mouth, so they realized that Mash had tied it inside his mouth like a cherry stem. Mash agreed, saying he tied it using his tongue. They commented on how ridiculous that was. Neri was trembling and realized that Mash couldn't kill the parasite, so he used his tongue to mobilize it. Mash then stated that they had heard the enemy's speech and saved Bless, so it seems like they were done there. Ryo commented that Mash was a treasure. Order insisted they weren't finished yet because they still had to deal with Mash. He said that the rules are the rules, and those without magic had no say. That's just how their world works. Mash's death sentence would proceed, but Mash objected. At this, Order could only stare. Mash planted himself firmly on the floor, stating he wouldn't go with them. It seemed they might not be able to remove Mash from there due to what he'd done. Order asked if Mash was a child and if he thought being stubborn would work there. Mash simply repeated that he wouldn't go with them. In an instant, the man disappeared and reappeared behind Mash. He created a sharp object from his hand and aimed to stab it into Mash's ear. Just as he was about to do it, Ryo suddenly shouted for him to wait and stopped him. Order had said that the decision was unanimous, but he hadn't heard what he had to say yet, so did he want to listen first. He intensely stared at Order. Suddenly, a large sword fell between Mash and Order. Mash recognized that sword. As they walked in, the Visionaries turned to look. It turned out to be Wahlberg and Rayne, and Wahlberg pleaded if the Visionaries could change their sentencing. He added that the sending of a messenger by Innocent Zero was new to them. There was a greater chance that Mash could provide a lead to find them. They couldn't afford to lose Mash at that point. The Visionaries just stared. Mash then asked if the headmaster was an important person. Ryo had a poker face in response to that question. He explained that Wahlberg was a former divine visionary. During his youth, he was the only person capable of standing against Innocent Zero. He was a living legend. That's why, even though Ryo was close to becoming the top magic user in the world, Wahlberg still had his respect. Wahlberg was a real man among magic users. He told Mash that when Wahlberg speaks, Mash should listen, and Mash agreed. Order said he understood Wahlberg's position, but he didn't accept it. Regulations dictate such treatment, and they are not open for individual interpretation. It is necessary to maintain order, and black magic should be eliminated. That's just how it is. Wahlberg suddenly removed his hat, which made Ryo wonder. He bowed in front of the Visionaries, causing them to be surprised. Sophina immediately said that there was no need for Wahlberg to bow to them. Wahlberg then explained that while it was true that Mash couldn't use magic, wasn't refined, and wasn't a scholar, but he had a unique power, the power to convince people's hearts. Their worldview needed change, and he believed that people like Mash were needed to make that change. And that wasn't all he expected. Even now, those without magic are considered as a lower class of beings. But he was troubled by that issue because it didn't seem fair to him. Their values change with history, and redefining those values requires courage because they have to admit their injustice. And now that he said it, what's wrong remains wrong. As Order was responding that he respects Wahlberg but that it really isn't possible, Finn also knelt and pleaded. He agreed with the headmaster and explained that in his opinion, Mash has proven that he deserves their trust. Kaldo said that he was sure Rayne had good intentions, but opinions do not change the rules. Revel said that debating is boring and they should just finish Mash off. Sophina mentioned that Rayne has already expressed his views clearly, but the public won't accept the exception. Order stated that there is nothing left to discuss. They will execute Mash. They all put emotions before rational thoughts. Blessed then spoke, saying they feel the same way about killing those without magic. Their power is a special blessing from God, and those without it are designed to be separated. They do not meet the standards they set for humanity. However, one of those magicless people saved his life. He knew he should act based on the rules. If he fails in his duties, so be it. But that case is for him to handle. So, he was asking for reprieve for Mash. They can punish Bless if they want, but his judgment will not change. After that, Wahlberg and the Divine Visionaries exchanged glances. Orator said that they will follow this under the conditions that they need to observe all of Mash's movements as a tool against Innocent Zero. And Mash needs to prove his strength by becoming the Divine Visionary candidate for that year. And if he fails to reach that, Mash will die. Mash understood that. But if he wants to embody the headmaster's wish and live peacefully with everyone, Orator's desire won't be enough. He then punched the ground, causing a very strong earthquake. Mash declared that because of this, he would brutally beat up Innocent Gyro with his fists. Elsewhere, it seemed the leader of Innocent Zero felt Mash's threat. Lance was surprised that Mash lacked magic, while Finn said that does this mean he's now involved in a delicate situation. Dot, on the other hand, said that he understood. He suddenly said that they needed to have fun. In the next scene, they went to Margarette Street. Finn thought that perhaps Dot suggested this for Mash. That might be better than just stressing out all night. He wondered what his friends might look like when they're not in school uniforms. Someone called him, and when Finn looked back, he saw a person in full plate armor. Dot told him that having fun is also a kind of battle. Finn didn't understand that. Neither do I. Finn then heard Mash had arrived. It showed here that Mash was still working out, which surprised Finn. Mash explained that he had never tried going out with his friends before, so he wasn't sure what to wear. Why would he even need to bring an ab wheel? In Finn's thinking, he didn't want to be seen with those two. Lance arrived and apologized for being late. It's good that Lance's attire was normal. However, Finn was mistaken, and Lance showed off his attire featuring a portrait of his pet. He even added the word love, wrapping Finn in embarrassment. After that, they chatted, and Dot mentioned a popular game at Margarette Street, and before long, they found it. It showed displayed koalas and dartboards. The player tickles the koala's nose to make it sneeze. Using the koala's mucus, they needed to hit the dartboard. Mash explained that it's called koalas, not dots. The koala's mucus hardens and turns into projectiles. They would tickle the koala's nose to make it sneeze and hit the dartboard. Finn said it seemed fun. Mash wanted to try it. Dot was boasting there while Mash was preparing. When the koala sneezed, the mucus hit Dot, and he started bleeding. Mash apologized while Finn was just dumbfounded. There was a brief silence, but Dot understood because Mash was a first-timer. He would show Mash how to play it, but when he did, the mucus just hit Mash. Mash was quiet for a moment and suddenly put Dot in a flying armbar, suggesting they should have a fist fight. In the next scene, they were walking again, and Lance was looking for a new wand. He said that there's a famous wand shop on Margarette Street, and rumors say that the Divine Visionary selection is approaching. That caught Mash's attention. Due to the disturbance caused by Innocent Zero, they've brought it forward, which is good for them. Given their current coin count, they're sure they can make the selection exam. Once they pass that, all that's left is the final screening. Lance doesn't care if Mash doesn't have magic. He wouldn't hold back for his sister Anna. Mash was just looking there. Before long, they arrived at the wand shop that Lance mentioned. Upon entering, the shop was full of flying wands. An old man greeted them and welcomed them in. The man noticed that they were students from Easton Academy, to which Finn agreed. Mash was amazed by the number of wands there, while Dot was getting hyped up by what he was seeing. Finn thought that he might want to change his wand too, and suddenly a wand was summoned for him. Mash was amazed, and Finn explained that their magic power was summoning a wand that would suit them. The man explained that their wand is an extension of their bodies, a tool to help them release their magic power, and a compatible wand would help them be better at using their magic. There, Lance was also able to summon a wand. The shopkeeper and Finn were amazed, while Dot was obviously jealous, even though he denied it. The shopkeeper asked Mash if he wanted to try summoning as well. Finn thought that it wasn't good because since Mash is magicless, he wouldn't be able to summon a wand. When Mash was about to try it, he noticed a wand in one corner that was stuck in the floor. It looked quite intimidating. The The shopkeeper explained that the wand had been there for many years, but it was too heavy to be moved. The story goes that beneath it, there's elf water that will emerge when the wand is removed. The water could be used to make beautiful wands, but it's nothing more than a legend. In thousands of years, no one with strength or magic has been able to lift it. Because Dot and Finn know Mash, they shouted and told the shopkeeper not to challenge Mash because he doesn't know what he will do. The shopkeeper wondered what they meant. Suddenly, Mash picked up the wand and water started flowing from where it had been. The shopkeeper was surprised, and Mash said that was the wand he would take. The shopkeeper was bewildered by what had happened and couldn't believe the legend was true. He thanked them and said the wand was now Mash's. In the end, it turned out that Lance didn't buy a wand. Now that their shopping was over, they were going to go back to playing. Then Lemon and Tom arrived, apologizing for being late. In the following scenes, they went to various stores and enjoyed their day. After that, because of exhaustion, Dot, Lemon, Finn, and Tom fell down while Mash enjoyed looking at his wand. They shouted that they were experiencing their best student lives. Suddenly, Mash said that he had enjoyed the day, which surprised his friends. He had never experienced going out with his friends before. Mash invited his friends to come back there again. His friends were touched by this, and in the end, they agreed, with Lance saying he would bring Anne along. In the next scene, it was explained that at Easton Magic Academy, each dorm is supervised by a prefect. These 3 prefects possess some of the best talents within Easton. They all have the skills required to become a divine visionary. In the next scene, they counted the gold coins they had collected. It turns out they had 7 gold coins. Lance said that's all they needed for the selection exam. Mash, on the other hand, mentioned that the exam is approaching, but before that, he plans to visit home. A flashback was shown when he talked to Rayne about wanting to go home. Rayne was puzzled by this. He questioned why Mash wanted to go home, especially at a time like this, and hoped he wasn't serious. Mash didn't have anything to say to that, and just said he would stay there. Elsewhere, Order was eating with a man. Order shared a story about a student without magic who wants to become a visionary. He said Wahlberg was getting older and his decision-making skills were affected. Those in power have the responsibility to stop disturbances before they escalate, and that role has fallen to him. He made it clear that the student can't participate in the Divine Visionary Selection exam. The man Order was talking to was introduced as the Orca Prefect, Margarette Macaron. It seemed like a serious issue since Order had come to see her. But she was aware that she didn't just go along with orders. The only thing she cared about was the rush. Order explained that it doesn't disappear just because Mash defeated the Prefect Abel. Margarette said she heard about it and didn't expect someone with such ability to appear while she was away. However, she said that strength isn't based on hoarding coins. But when Order pointed out that Mash did that without magic, Margarette was so surprised that she dropped what she was eating. Order said he would take care of the cleaning and she could start doing what she wanted. Margarette promptly sat at her grand piano and began to play a frightful sound that seemed to envelop the entire area. She continued to play until she was content, and in the end, she suddenly said a word that I am showing in the video now. I don't know how to pronounce it. Her companions in the room were scared. In the next scene, we went to Mash's house where he had just arrived. Brad asked him how he was doing. Mash stutteringly said that it was easy there. Mash explained that he had been thinking and decided to visit. His father was overjoyed and said he was happy that Mash was safe. Suddenly, someone spoke from the side and apologized. It turned out that Mash's friends had arrived. Regro couldn't believe that Mash already had friends. He explained that he couldn't introduce Mash to the outside world, and it seemed that the day had come. Dot then explained that his relationship with Mash was more complicated than just being friends. They were buds, and he was the stronger one. Regro couldn't believe that Mash already had a rival. Lemon said she was happy to have met her father-in-law. She trusted him to take care of her. She declared herself as Mash's future wife. Regro was surprised. He couldn't believe that Mash already had a fiancé. Lemon explained that they haven't held hands yet, so they remain pure. Dot was puzzled. They assured Regro not to worry because Mash was doing well in their school. Dot brought herbal tea as a souvenir. Lance told him to stop that. He handed over something and said it was from him. It was merchandise. When Regro asked whose merchandise it was, he said it was his sister's. Regro wondered why he was given such a thing. Mash explained to him that Lance hadn't learned yet that people have different priorities. Regro understood that. While they were having a good time, Regro and Finn were watching them. Regro commented that they seemed like strange kids, to which Finn agreed. It seemed difficult to be with Mash's group. Finn agreed again. However, Regro wasn't able to let Mash out before, so he didn't dream that Mash would have such good friends. He was hopeful that this would last forever. Finn assured him that it would definitely happen. In the forest, Margaret and her subordinates were riding on their brooms. She questioned how she could let the incident of Abel's defeat against magicless Mash pass. As they were flying, swords suddenly appeared heading towards them. They managed to dodge them, and upon landing, Margaret asked Rayne if he was protecting Mash. Rayne said it just happened that he was there when he heard an ugly laugh. Margarette smiled at that, and while this was happening, Mash and his friends were still enjoying themselves at his house. We delve into the history of Margarette Macaron. Several years ago, a competition was held among students in the middle school division. The purpose of this was to discover talented 13 to 15-year-old magic users. It turned out that only one magic user succeeded alone against all other participants. Because of her dominance, there were doubts about her victory. An investigation took place, and it was discovered that a rule violation had occurred. The participant had lied about her age. The participant turned out to be only 9 years old at the time. Her name, Margarette Macaron, the future prefect of Orchidorm. We return to the confrontation between Margarette and Rayne. Margarette doesn't just plan to fight Mash, she also plans to fight one of the school's divine visionaries. She suddenly flicked her hand, and a grand piano appeared, which she then played. She mentioned that Rayne was a powerless winner. There was a moment of silence, and Rayne wondered if something should have happened. Margarette explained that not all powerful magic users want to become divine visionaries because it's just a title. She only aspires to pure strength, while Rayne aspired to the position. She wondered who between them would be stronger. Soon after, the two prepared and exchanged their own magic. The two powerful magics clashed and caused an explosion. While that was happening, our hero was playing board games with his friends at his house. As they were playing, the board game seemed to reveal their personal problem. Dot's problem was being overly cautious. Lemon's problem was love issues. Lance noticed that the board game seemed to predict their futures, and when he tried it, his piece landed on a square stating that his little sister brought home a boyfriend. Because of that, he was flung onto Mash's wall. Finn also tried it and his seemed normal. When Mash tried it, his piece landed on a square stating that it was discovered he couldn't use magic, so it was game over for him. Mash was shocked. They all stared at the board game, and Dot started laughing. He was trying to hide the pain he felt while Lemon was getting annoyed with the game. Lance was just quiet. Lemon and Dot started arguing while Finn remained silent. He remembered his brother Rayne's words saying that such days will continue. Words only have meaning when you pair them with actions. If he can't act, it's the same as not voicing what he feels. In the end, Finn decided to help his friends move forward. In the next scene, we return to the fight between the two prefects where Margarette used shiver sounds on Rayne. She also used howling sounds. Suddenly, musical notes appeared around Rayne, and they gradually multiplied until he was surrounded by them. Margarette then told Rayne that she wouldn't attack if she were him because these notes would explode in response to his casting. She then asked Rayne if he knew why they crave stimulation. Art, love, sports, drinking, drugs, and gambling. None of them are necessary to live a normal life. So why do they seek them? The answer is simple. Because boredom signifies death. She explained that they live to seek excitement. But Rayne was too easygoing and even interfered with others' problems. Rayne was boring to her. She couldn't imagine someone like him fulfilling what Margarette desires. He should just be kind and step aside because she wants to see Mash. Suddenly, Rayne spoke up and said that Mash was brave and shameless. He was brave to the point where he told Rayne that he wants to change the world's perspective. After that, there seemed to be a strange pressure in the area, and Margarette noticed a shift in Rayne's mood. Back at Easton Academy, Onii-Chan explained to Wahlberg that Margarette was as famous as Rayne. They are widely recognized. But the only difference between them was that Margarette didn't want to become a divine visionary, even though she has the skills for it. Rayne wouldn't go home without accomplishing something there. Wahlberg then explained that despite how Rayne acted, he always managed to help others. After that, Wahlberg asked Neri what he knew about marks. Neri answered and said that he believed that the number of lines increased in accordance with one's absolute magic power. Wahlberg confirmed that this was correct. Wahlberg explained that Easton was a historic school, dating back several centuries. In their school, they had seen many double-liners. However, they only encountered very few triple-liners. Suddenly, they showed Margarette, who looked absolutely shocked. If 2 lines represent the recognition of a person's talent by magic, then those with 3 lines are chosen by God. Margarette suddenly teared up with joy and uttered the words, "The summer of bliss." Wahlberg explained that the youngest person to get 3 lines was Rayne Ames. Rayne, who was shown growing a 3rd line, promised to ensure that the brazen boy, Mashle, would be helped to move forward as far as he could go. In the next scene, they were still playing the board game with Mashle, where it was Mashle's turn to go back to the space he had previously landed on. Because of that, Mashle was again flabbergasted. Dot commented, "That's the 2nd time." Lemon cheered him on, while Lance said that Mashle couldn't get past that square. Finn didn't know that there were game overs in that game. Mashle then decided to step outside for a moment. Dot and the others were worried about him. Dot thought that Mashle was acting okay, but he felt that Mashle was already hurt. Finn was sure that was right because Mashle was innocent in all of this. Lemon said that if she were Mashle, she would blame society. After that, they wondered if Mashle was okay. Meanwhile, Mashle was shown running fast and eventually stopped. He said that no one would be able to see him there now. Suddenly, he took out a giant cream puff. He said that now that he was alone, that specialty cream puff was just for him. But he heard something from the side. The scene switched back to the standoff between Rayne and Margarette. Margarette thought to herself that it was a gift from the gods to see someone her age reach triple-liner status. She explained that her howling sounds would create a chain explosionary reaction to chanting. Indeed, Rayne was a triple-liner, but he still needed to chant to use magic. She thought she had him cornered since she surrounded him. Suddenly, Rayne asked her if Order had told her about Mashle, because Margarette wasn't usually interested in school affairs. So he was sure Order must have done it. Margarette played dumb and asked what Rayne was referring to. While that was happening, Mashle arrived and heard Rayne explaining to Margarette that the kid he was after, Mashle, couldn't use magic. He seemed to have lost his right to, and who wouldn't be saddened by that reality? To envy those who have magic, to regret being born, to be angry with society. All of these reactions are supposedly justified. But Mashle doesn't think that way. He proudly said that Mashle is challenging his own fate. Margarette and Mashle just stared at each other. Margarette, being an underhanded rat, wouldn't understand. Margarette said the speech was cute, but she still didn't care. In the minds of Margarette's companions, she remains confident even though she's fighting a triple-liner divine visionary. Margarette is not arrogant. She distributed her coins throughout the dorm because she wasn't interested in becoming a divine visionary, but she managed to collect 10 gold coins from the upperclassmen, the highest last year. She also explained that her howling sounds would dent everything if Rayne chanted a counterspell. Rayne is at a disadvantage. The value of the amount of magic power you can produce is not the only important thing. Skills are also crucial, and Margarette has top-class skills and techniques. Suddenly, Margarette closed her eyes and imagined a theater full of people cheering for her. She then conducted, and her 2 companions began to play. She cast the sounds orchestra towards Rayne. Rayne needed to cast a spell at that point. The scene then suddenly switched to Neri as he asked what distinguishes triple-liners from double-liners. Both are on different levels in terms of their perspective. Wahlberg explained that the 3 lines signify someone chosen by the gods. They have the ability to unleash stronger power than a double-liner. But that's not all they can do. They can awaken the true form of their wand. Neri seemed puzzled. Wahlberg said that magic is known as the blessing of the gods. The scene then suddenly shifted to Rayne as he faced his wand. He quickly cast a powerful deflector shield, repelling Margarette's attacks. Margarette was surprised, wondering how strong the magical energy Rayne was releasing. Rayne then exclaimed, "Summon Ares, god of war." Wahlberg explained that triple-liners could invoke the power of a god from their wand, while showing the brutal transformation of Rayne, who now held a spear instead of his wand. Margarette was surprised to see the transformation of his wand, realizing that it was the Sword Cane, the divine visionary of war. In the end, Rayne declared checkmate and attacked with his spear. He cast the black partisan towards Margarette, who was shocked. We return to the moment when Rayne attacked Margarette with the black partisan. Margarette used the sound shield to try and block Rayne's attack. However, it was easily cut through and resulted in a large slash on the floor. After that, Rayne's third line disappeared and Mashle suddenly appeared. He thought he needed to thank Rayne. Rayne asked for what reason. Mashle said he was just playing with rabbits in the forest. Mashle stated that Rayne really does have a fondness for bunnies. Rayne reminded him that the selection exam is approaching. Mashle agreed. He admitted that he's not good at encouragements since a long time ago, but he had something to say. Mashle was about to enter a challenge like never before experienced in their world, and nothing good would happen if he failed. So, he should win and give meaning to his trial. Mashle nodded in agreement. He told Mashle to keep that in mind as he still has bunnies to take care of. Mashle mentioned again that Rayne really does love bunnies. After that, there was shown a trail of blood, and it turned out that Margarette was safe and was carrying her subordinates. In her thoughts, she realized that's the power of a triple liner. Rayne's giant wand apparently gave a much wider baseline of his magical power, resulting in even an entry-level spell having the strength equivalent to a second magic. She wouldn't have minded if she tried her second spell, but she had to save the men first. It might be a maternal instinct, she thought. The men she was carrying thought that Margarette could have fought using her second spell if they weren't there, so it was their fault. He apologized, but Margarette said it was okay. She believed in the saying, save the best for last. In the next scene, each of our heroes spent their end-of-semester exam break doing whatever they pleased. Finn was looking at some gold coins. He remembered their conversation with Dot and Mashle, where Mashle gave them 3 gold coins each. He suddenly cried and shouted that he couldn't handle it. He repeatedly shouted and apologized. Meanwhile, Lance was sitting in front of the fireplace looking at an image of his younger sister. He said it was getting close, so Anna should wait for him. Dot seemed extremely agitated and it appeared he couldn't sleep due to the hype. He was going to check his luggage and soon rummaged through it to see if he forgot anything. Meanwhile, Mashle was sitting with Regro. Regro said he heard that it was discovered that Mashle couldn't use magic, and he would be prosecuted if Mashle didn't meet their demands. He put down the glass he was holding and bowed his head. Regro apologized to Mashle, claiming it was his fault. If he could have just given Mashle a normal life, if only he could have provided a better one. While explaining what else he could do, Mashle suddenly said he was happy, which surprised Regro. Mashle explained that he has a dad who always looks after him. He got to experience school for a while and was blessed with friends. He also ate many cream puffs. Mashle was happy there and thanked Regro. Regro's reaction showed his relief, and he made Mashle promise to come back safely. In the next scene, it was explained that the path to becoming a divine visionary is broadly divided into 3 stages. The first is coin acquisition. The second is the candidate selection exam. And the third is the divine visionary elect final exam. To proceed to the second stage, a participant must have 5 or more gold coins. However, due to the unexpected escape of Innocent Zero, the exam was advanced and only 3 coins are needed to pass. The participants of that year's selection exam were then shown. They were Mortimato, Pontoris, Doe Marks, LeBlanc Russell, Max Land, and A. Oreo Morris. Also present were Dot Barrett and Finn Ames. The 4 with the most gold coins were Carpaccio Luo-Yang of Orca Dorm with 4 gold coins, Lance Crown of Adler Dorm with 5 coins, Margarette Macaron of Orca Dorm with 5 coins, and finally, Mashle Burnedead of Adler Dorm with 7 gold coins. He remembered what Wahlberg told him, that the challenge he would face would be difficult. After that, all the examinees entered the arena. In the next scene, a happy child is seen holding an ice cream. However, she bumped into a man and dropped her ice cream. It turns out the man is Order. The little girl tearfully apologized, while Order was indifferent. In the next scene, we return to the arena where the audience is cheering for Lance. As Mashle was walking, he came across Order. Order stated that humans are defined by a standard. Mashle's existence, he claimed, disrupts the entire system. Mashle isn't human, according to him, and as long as Order is there, he won't acknowledge the importance of Mashle's existence. Mash suddenly flexed his muscles and told himself that what Order said was untrue. Mash thanked his muscles, Kevin, Tom, Mike, Kim, and Yamada, and pledged to stay strong. Order was just standing there, stunned, as Mash got dressed. In that case, Mash was going to fight him with all his strength while walking. When he got to the center of the arena, the commentator was surprised. The audience recognized Mash as the one who couldn't use magic and thought it was absurd for Mash to participate there. The entire audience trash-talked Mash, telling him to go home because they were embarrassed that he was representing them. What was he doing there? They asked. Because he didn't have any magic, so he should go home. Because of that, Mash said he wanted to go home. Finn then said that he couldn't blame him. The host then announced that the 12 candidates had arrived and they were going to start. The first game is an elimination, and what better way to start the round than a survival match? And the deadly field for elimination has emerged. It's the Deadervant's hunt. The rules are simple. They would look for a key and escape. Finn commented that it didn't seem too dangerous after all. However, that key is inside the swim bladder of the mighty troll goose fish, and the only way to get it is to pop it like a balloon. Finn thought that it seemed difficult and asked if that was the test. The host added that they would be chased by 3 Deadervants while doing that. Because of that, Finn panicked and started crying in fear. Of course, they need to pause the elimination to get to the real test. The reflection mirrors would transmit everything happening so that the audience could watch, so they shouldn't cheat. And after that, the participants were suddenly teleported to a terrifying forest. The match was now about to begin. The participants started to observe the area. Before long, a Deadervant appeared behind LeBlanc, and he immediately used his special, but it didn't work. The host mentioned that Deadervants are immune to magic, so they should be careful, while LeBlanc was getting battered. If they get hit by these creatures, it's game over for them and they'll be sent back to the arena. While that's happening, Finn is crying. On Dot's side, he said the only thing they can do is run away from those things while looking for the key. Lance then said there's no hint as to where it is. Making them run around with no clear guidance is a low form of a test, unless there's some undisclosed strategy going on here. Max, on the other hand, was thinking about whether they were being tested on how they could use their magic to escape. The host then shouted out, affirming that he was correct. The Deadervants are merely stand-ins. As they are limited to that stage, they were made using a powerful magic just for that. What will they do against an unbeatable enemy? If that's the case, retreating is an acceptable tactic. And in the first stage of the test, they will need to run. The how and how will they do it is what's being tested. Dot then shouted, saying that there's definitely something strange about that school, while Finn continued to cry. Margarette, on the other hand, was just smiling. The audience was discussing how weak the candidates seemed this year. They said it couldn't be compared to last year because Rayne was part of it. The host then shouted that it's time to run as if their lives depended on it. Suddenly, Mash dashed towards a Deadervant and punched it in the muscle with remarkable strength. Because of this, the audience, along with the narrator, were shocked. The Deadervant knelt down and seemed to have trouble breathing. The audience couldn't believe it, saying wasn't that test about how to win when they have to run. LeBlanc was also surprised, while Margarette and Carpaccio just looked on. After that, Mash said he would now look for the key. We turn to the times when Mash almost messed up the exam. After punching the Deadervant, it just stood up again, so Mash was puzzled. The host explained that the reason they were named Deadervants was because they are undead creatures, and any damage they receive, they heal quickly. Because of this, our protagonist was taken aback and decided to run. After that, he quickly ran away from the Deadervant. Mash wondered where the balloon with the key was. If only his friends were there, it would be easy because he isn't the smartest among his friends. While running, someone whistled at Mash. Because of this, he was able to hide from the Deadervant chasing him. After the Deadervant observed and sniffed around, it also left. It turns out it was Max who whistled and asked if the Deadervant had left. Max explained to Mash that these creatures react to sound but have poor eyesight, so they would be safe if they stayed quiet. Mash said he felt small because of what happened earlier. Mash thanked Max for his help, even though it was an exam. Max said, of course, it was obvious that they would do better if they worked together as a group. So that's the reason why he was going to form a team with Mash, and they would solve the exam together. Mash said he didn't know Max that well yet, but nevertheless, Max did save him. Upon pondering, Max thought Mash seemed gullible. As for the location of the key, it became clear where it was due to the movement pattern of the Deadervants. Mash asked what was clear. Max explained to Mash that it was an exam. They were being evaluated for their adaptability to the environment. While Max continued to explain how the exam was made, our protagonist short-circuited and got stunned again. Max noticed this and asked if Mash had passed out. Mash suddenly woke up and apologized. Max had been using too many deep words. In that case, he said he would just shorten it. The key to the exam was to follow the Deadervants. Mash agreed to this. In another place, a Deadervant was wandering around while Finn hid behind a wall, holding back his tears. Dot, on the other hand, was shouting while looking for the key. Because of his loud voice, he attracted a Deadervant and it chased him. Lance was shown to have noticed something, and the scene suddenly switched to Max and Mash tiptoeing behind a Deadervant. Max whispered not to make noise, to which Mash nodded in agreement. However, Mash suddenly tripped, and just when Max thought he would fall, Mash planted his feet on the ground so he didn't trip. Crazy. Because of that, they were not noticed by the Deadervant. Max then signaled that they were clear. They suddenly noticed a giant balloon. Max mentioned that the Deadervants indeed stick close to the key. He then noticed the bellows beneath the balloon. Mash thought they would explode it using air pressure, saying it was that easy. Max screamed out, trying to stop Mash. However, it was too late and Mash had already squeezed it. Because of that, it made a loud noise which led a Deadervant to chase them. Max was angry and called Mash a fool. Mash said they were now dead, but Max clarified that it was his fault. Max then reflected on the incident earlier. Max explained that his magic allows him to change the size of things. He expected it would be difficult for them to fill it with air. Mash assumed it was because of Max that he had shrunk. Max wondered how they could fill it with air. Mash suggested that they try to break it instead. Max stared at him and finally agreed. When he gave the signal, Mash tried again, but it only made a sound again, which caused another Deadervant to chase them. Even a wrong touch there causes a noise, so it meant they couldn't just pull it out and retrieve the key. Max wondered if when they broke the bellows, wouldn't the key come out through the hole? In the next scene, they'd ride it, but it didn't work. No key came out, and even the air remained inside. It seemed like it was infused with magic to keep the key inside. They had no choice but to use magic to explode it. They wondered what kind of magic they could use, as they had already broken the bellows. While Mash was staring, he suddenly had an idea. After that, a Deadervant guarding the area was shown. Max was shown hiding behind a broken wall and said he was ready. He suddenly enlarged the balloon, which the audience saw using a reflection mirror. They rash-talked them, saying they were only making things hard for themselves. Mash was shown apparently dancing, which puzzled the audience. He suddenly did a headstand, so the audience wondered if he was about to start breakdancing. Mash started head spinning and gradually sped up, leaving the audience in disbelief. Mash continued spinning while the spectators were dizzied by the sight. Max explained that there's always a simpler solution. Use his magic to enlarge the balloon, and with Mash's extremely fast breakdancing, it would blow air into the enlarged opening of the balloon. Because of Mash's breakdancing, it didn't take long for them to pop the balloon. The audience was brought to tears and thought of Mash as a weapon. In the end, they obtained their first key, and not long after, another Deadervant chased them again. In the next scene, Lance was shown using his gravio to float the balloon, and using the pressure of his gravity magic, he exploded it, resulting in the acquisition of a key. Dot used his Explom and exploded the balloon, hence also acquiring a key. Margarette was also shown already holding a key, while Finn was still crying. Mash and Max were still celebrating their victory. Max was pleased that their plan worked, and at first, he didn't expect it to. Mash wanted to say something, so Max asked him what it was. Mash handed the key to Max and explained that because of Max they were able to get it, so Max should be the one to use it. Because of that, Max was surprised, seemingly in disbelief. Max said that Mash is indeed a good person. Mash responded that he's not. Max sincerely said that Mash is the one who got the key, which also surprised Mash. He pointed to the exit in that place and mentioned that time supposedly has a factor in their ranking. When Mash tried to argue, Max said that Rayne had told him about Mash. He didn't believe at first that Mash was a good person, but he let it go. Now that he knows the mechanics, he can handle himself. He told Mash to let him prove himself. He said he would call it his selfish desire to help people like Mash, so Mash shouldn't worry. Mash bowed his head while Max just smiled. Max is his senior, so Mash's job as a junior is to help him maintain his honor. Before long, Mash agreed. He thanked Max and left. After that, Max felt a bit lighter and then noticed something behind him. When he turned around, something immediately grazed his forehead. He said that his guess was right. Carpaccio Luo-Yang of Orc arrived there. While pondering, he asked Rayne if he did his best for the juniors. He challenged Carpaccio while Carpaccio just looked at him. In the next scene, Mash returned to the arena while the host announced the arrival of the candidates. Mash was given refreshments to prepare for the next test, for which Mash expressed his thanks. Dot and Finn were shown seemingly catching their breath. Dot commented that the explosions seemed to be working there, while Mash noted that they were just battered. Lance was surprised because Mash managed to pass without magic. Mash then mentioned that he had help. He wondered and asked why Max let him go first, as it seemed that Max had a problem. Lance asked if something had happened, and Mash responded that nothing really happened. However, he was interrupted when the host announced that only 9 could advance to the next stage. They wondered who would claim that spot. Just when Mash thought Max was the last participant to pass, it turned out to be Carpaccio carrying Max's unconscious body. It appeared that Carpaccio had beaten Max to the point of unconsciousness. The host questioned whether this was a declaration of war against other dorms. Carpaccio stepped on Max's head and declared that he didn't need the weak as they were useless. Therefore, it didn't matter what he did to them. Mash apologized and pleaded with Carpaccio not to step on Max, or he would punch him. He added, did Carpaccio really need to go that far with what he did? Carpaccio just stared while Finn thought about the student being the top continuing student that year. The best of the best, just like Lance. There was an intense confrontation between Mash and Carpaccio, and suddenly he grabbed Mash's glass, making the audience nervous. While throwing water at Mash, Carpaccio said the weak should remain silent. Mash unexpectedly caught the water Carpaccio threw, which astonished the people there. He closed it, shook it, and drank it. The audience was completely stunned. Mash apologized. He explained that it was already 3 p.m., and that was his time for his homemade special muscle drink. It turned out that Mash made a protein shake with the water Carpaccio threw. In Finn's mind, it was a little scary that Mash could react so quickly, while Mash explained that the secret to his shake was powdered beans because they were packed with protein. Mash clarified that he didn't do that to stop Carpaccio. Instead, it was crucial for him to stick to his protein shake drinking schedule. Mash added that Carpaccio called people weak, but Mash had yet to meet someone stronger than himself. Carpaccio just stared as an intense aura spread around him. Let's go back to what Mash said to Carpaccio. After that, as Mash was explaining that the definition of strength varies, he couldn't remember where the differences lie. Carpaccio just stared at him as Mash searched for the right word. Someone shouted that Mash just confused himself. As the other contestants were watching, the host suddenly shouted and said to wait. They were to fight only after the examination, and they were expected to understand that. The contestants just looked on. To not prolong the situation, the next round would begin. The contestants were surprised because the color of their robes changed. Finn noticed this and also realized that they were divided into 3 teams. The host then announced, "Welcome to your next exam, the Life Crystals." It was a team battle with 3 members per team. And because there were 9 of them, they would be divided into 3 teams. Connected to that, each member of each team would be given a crystal. The goal of that exam was to break the crystals of the opposing teams. And the team whose all crystals are broken will be disqualified. Due to that explanation, Mash was flabbergasted again, and he started to drool. Dot then yelled, claiming that due to the host's long explanation, Mash went into a coma, so the host should make it easier to understand. The host simplified it and said that the team fight involves breaking each other's crystals. Dot shouted again, saying they just need to break the enemy's crystals, while Mash repeated, "Mash smash crystals." Finn thought that Lance was on a different team, so how would they be able to pull this off? Suddenly, there was a sound that made Finn turn. It turned out that their crystals had been distributed, and the host reminded them to take care of them because they could easily be broken. Looking at the crystal, Finn said that their fate depended on those crystals. But since each of them had one crystal, and all of them needed to be broken before they could lose, it would be okay if his got broken right away. However, he suddenly heard a breaking sound, and when he turned around, Mash had already broken his. Apparently, Mash had dropped it, which caused Finn to scream. Finn calmed down and thought it would be okay because Dot still had a crystal. Nevertheless, when he also turned to look at Dot, Dot had already broken his as well. Dot said he wished they had been told the thing was slippery, which caused Finn to scream loudly again. The two became depressed while Finn thought that if his gets broke in, they're done for. Both Dot and Finn told him not to worry because they would protect his crystal. Finn's courage returned at this point. Suddenly, the exam began, and they were teleported to the next stage. The contestants were separated into their respective teams to make things more exciting. Finn was then shown alone and seemingly unsure of what to do. Before long, he became depressed and cried, wondering why they were separated in a team battle. Mash was shown and said it was important for him to find Finn immediately. Dot, on the other hand, was nervous and thought that they are in deep trouble. He needed to quickly find Finn. In another part of the stage, Lance was thinking that Finn's situation was dangerous. While walking, Finn was thinking he needed to protect the crystal with his life. Suddenly, he heard someone asking for forgiveness. Looking over, he saw Pontorus kneeling in front of Carpaccio, who was staring at him. Finn also noticed that Pontorus seemed to be badly beaten up. He also saw a knife embedded in Carpaccio's shoulder. While removing the knife, Carpaccio said talent is not something that is evenly distributed. Their birth, he said, decides who can reach the top. Suddenly, Pon screamed with blood coming out of his mouth and chest. Carpaccio told him that it's important to live a life that suits you. Finn was thinking that this was even worse than bad news, considering what Carpaccio was capable of doing, and he needed to stay away from him. When he heard Carpaccio move, Finn tried to hide his presence by pretending to be an inanimate object. He said he was a wall, so Carpaccio should move away. He closed his eyes and committed to being a wall. Before long, he opened his eyes and peeked, where he didn't see Carpaccio anymore. However, it turned out that Carpaccio was behind him, which startled Finn. Carpaccio asked him what he was doing. Finn closed his eyes again and said that he couldn't speak because he was a wall. Carpaccio said it seemed like Finn would be fun to play with as he summoned a monster behind him. Finn was whimpering, wishing that someone would help him. Mash was shown running at an extraordinary speed. As Carpaccio stared at Finn, he was begging in his mind that he would kiss feet or lick toes just to be saved. Carpaccio then made his summon return. While trembling with fear, Carpaccio recognized that he was facing Finn Ames. Finn wondered why Carpaccio knew him. He remembered Finn as the continuing student who almost failed. Finn thought that he had become famous in a bad way. Carpaccio remembered him, and from the deepest part of his heart, he wondered why Finn was in Easton. And now, he was also in the Divine Visionary selection exams. Was it Rayne who got him in there? He couldn't help but feel disgusted when he saw talentless trash like Finn. He intensely ordered Finn to give him his crystal because it wasn't right for him to be there. He should give it to him. Scary. Finn started crying and thought that he might be the scariest thing he has seen. However, that crystal supposedly held Mash's future. Finn tightened his grip on the crystal and decided to protect it until the end. Suddenly, blood came out of his chest and he also vomited blood. Finn knelt down there and wondered why he was bleeding. He thought that maybe magic caused it. Carpaccio asked him what he was doing. When Finn did not answer, Carpaccio said that he had asked a weakling why he was acting like a big shot. He then asked if we knew the feeling when we are extremely terrified. When our blood vessels seem to be closing and there is a chill creeping towards our heart. Carpaccio said that Finn must be aware of the difference in their strength. Finn was going to lose anyway, so he should just give up his crystal so he won't get hurt anymore. Finn didn't know what to do. Finn apparently did not want to end up like Pontorus. Carpaccio said he wouldn't ask again and told Finn to just give it up. Finn lowered his head while tightening his grip on the crystal. Elsewhere, Margarette was walking, thinking that there seemed to be three standouts there. Mash, who can't use magic, Lance, who took first place among the entering students, and the man who maintained his position as first among the continuing students. Carpaccio. She always imagined that he was like her who was not interested in being a divine visionary. So her guess was that Order also made a deal with him. He was a prodigy chosen by a wand that could be a national treasure. In terms of talent, it was not an exaggeration to call him the best in the school. She paid tribute to those students, to the abundant and blessed grace of the world. She also thanked every living being and her parents for giving birth to her. After that, Finn was shown still being tormented by Carpaccio. Carpaccio could not understand Finn's stubbornness because he would eventually get the crystal anyway. Finn kept telling himself not to give up. He just needed to protect the crystal to win. Carpaccio was belittling him, so this was his chance. He hadn't used his personal magic yet. Finn took out his wand and shouted dangerous. Carpaccio looked up, but nothing happened. He realized that Finn had tricked him while he was running. He would catch him eventually. When Finn had moved away a little, he cast changes and suddenly Carpaccio was teleported. Carpaccio realized that the place was where he had broken Pon's crystal. He noticed that it was gone, so he thought that Finn's magic could swap the positions of objects. Finn hadn't used any magic since earlier, so he thought it was because he wanted to lower his defenses. While running, Finn was thinking that he had managed to get quite far. It was smart of him to keep his personal magic hidden until the very last possible moment. Now he could run from Carpaccio. However, his legs suddenly started bleeding while he was running. Because of that, he tripped. While writhing in pain, Carpaccio swapped places with him. He asked him if that was a last-ditch effort. Now he was sure that Finn knew how they were different. He stepped on Finn's injured foot and demanded the crystal. Finn still tightened his grip on the crystal while writhing in pain, causing Carpaccio to lose patience. He said that the weak needed to give up while stabbing himself. Because of this, Finn screamed in pain. The audience was worried and asked what kind of magic it was, saying that Carpaccio was going too far. Suddenly, Finn spoke, surprising Carpaccio. He said that Carpaccio would not be able to take the crystal. Finn reminisced about how Mashle had been a kind friend to him, while he called himself a loser and a coward, but he vowed that he would never stoop so low as to abandon a friend. Carpaccio's stare grew more and more intense. Finn quickly used Nalco's, but in the end, he was easily stopped by Carpaccio, and a large amount of blood splattered from his body. Carpaccio told him to stop because it was ugly. Seeing people who never succeed, despite giving their all, was the most irritating thing to him. Carpaccio pointed his knife at his own throat and said that he would show that Finn's efforts were in vain. The audience was disturbed, thinking that if Carpaccio continued, Finn would die. As Carpaccio was driving the knife into his own throat, Finn remained calm. The audience was restless as Finn's life was in danger. However, our protagonist arrived and slammed Carpaccio into the wall. Mashle said that Finn's efforts were not wasted because he was there. Mashle called out to Finn and thanked him for his sacrifice. Finn stared as Mashle called his name, continuing with the thrilling story of Mashle in a world filled with magic. Let's delve into an explanation of a wand. It is explained here that there are 13 ancient wands believed to exist in the magic world. These wands only choose people with innate talent to use them, and they bestow these people with blessings. These wands are called Master Canes. After that, we return to the scene of Mashle ramming Carpaccio into a wall. Before long, blood started dripping from Mashle's head. Because of this, Mashle wondered what happened. Carpaccio explained that he doesn't feel pain, to which Mashle was surprised. Carpaccio summoned his guardian angel again, so Mashle asked what it was. Carpaccio said his wand was special. Suddenly, Mashle kneed Carpaccio while he was talking and said that he didn't know what that meant, but he didn't care. Mashle was hurt again after he attacked Carpaccio, so he was puzzled again. Finn, on the other hand, was thinking that what was happening there seemed like the attacks were being reflected back to Mashle. Carpaccio explained that his magic transfers any damage he receives to his opponent. He stabbed his own leg and said that whenever he gets hurt, any pain he feels is absorbed by his wand. Mashle's legs started bleeding, which made Finn scared. It was then shown that the wound Carpaccio inflicted on himself was healing. He explained that he doesn't control it. His inability to feel pain is the blessing of the Master Cane. It has been continuously active since it chose him. That is the reason why from the moment he was born, he never felt pain. Wahlberg explained that Carpaccio is a master cane wielder. Their ancient artifacts acknowledge his talent. They remarked that it was quite the cornucopia among their first years. We return to Carpaccio, who explained that this is why he wanted to experience pain. However, someone like Mash wouldn't be able to do that for him, so they should finish it. Carpaccio continued to hurt himself to injure Mash. Finn realized that Carpaccio was able to execute an unavoidable attack. Mash tried again to charge and punch Carpaccio. However, he was the only one who got hurt, while Carpaccio continued to regenerate his wounds. Mash also kicked Carpaccio, but the same thing happened and his kick was only reflected back to him. Mash continued to try to hurt Carpaccio, but it was always reflected back at him. Finn thought about how the force of Mash's attacks was just reflected back to him, and it seemed as if Carpaccio was on the offensive. It didn't seem like a fight. As Mash stared, Carpaccio said that Mash was a joke. He explained that a person's fate is decided by their abilities when they are born. He said Mash wanted to fight him to disprove that, but it was useless. As useless as Finn. Finn was a loser throughout middle school, always on the verge of failing. Unlike his brother, Rayne, Finn didn't deserve to be there. The place is not where someone like him belongs. He said that Finn couldn't protect a single crystal by himself. A weakling who always needs help. Finn was an embarrassment. Because of that, Finn bowed his head in depression. Suddenly Mash explained and said that Carpaccio had a point. Because of this, the audience was surprised at what he said. He said it was wise to give up when you really can't do something. It's important to evaluate yourself and know where you are now. From Carpaccio's perspective, Finn's struggle seems pointless, and it might even be pitiful. But no matter how scared Finn was, he stood up and did not give up for him. Even though his enemy was a very powerful person, and no one had the right to laugh at his friend because of that. Carpaccio just stared as Mash prepared to punch. He rained a flurry of powerful punches on Carpaccio. Finn wondered why he would do that, because Mash wouldn't be able to endure those attacks. Carpaccio realized that Mash was doing this to try to outpace his healing. As if that would work, he said he expected that Mash had more capabilities. It was disappointing. Suddenly, Carpaccio noticed something, and it showed here that his goddess statue's face was cracking. Carpaccio was puzzled by this. When he noticed that, Mash continued to punch without stopping to the best of his ability. Carpaccio said he didn't expect his goddess statue to have a limit. He said it was impossible because it had never happened to him before. After that, Mash delivered an uppercut to knock Carpaccio down. While Carpaccio was standing up, Mash said he is now stronger than him. Now that you know this, will you still fight Mash bravely like what Finn did to you? Because of that, Carpaccio looked at Mash. The cracking face of his goddess statue was shown here. Carpaccio wondered and asked what kind of body Mash had. While looking at Mash, Carpaccio suddenly laughed. While the goddess is formed behind him was changing, Carpaccio explained that it was the first time his goddess had cracked, but it was moving on its own. And from now on, that goddess statue would be more defensive. It suddenly attacked using a big syringe, but luckily, Mash dodged. Nevertheless, Carpaccio stabbed himself again to attack Mash. He said Mash's death wouldn't be quick. He needs to honor the fact that someone as strong as Mash lived in that world where everything was just a mist for him. While dodging, Carpaccio noticed something about Mash. Mash brought out an iron wand, so Carpaccio was puzzled. Mash lengthened the wand and shaped it. The audience was surprised because Mash was doing that to an iron wand using just his hands. In the end, Mash revealed that he was shaping a tennis racket. He took what looked like a ball and hit it towards the goddess. As it bounced back to him, he repeatedly did this. The audience noticed that Mash was avoiding the syringes while doing this simultaneously. They also noticed that Mash repeatedly targeted the place where the goddess had a crack. The audience then realized that Mash was playing a wall rally with the goddess. Mash continuously bombarded the goddess while the audience and Carpaccio were very surprised. In the end, Mash managed to break Carpaccio's statue. Carpaccio wondered how Mash was able to do it. Mash suddenly asked him if he really wanted to feel what it was like to get hurt. If yes, Mash said he would help him. He raised the racket, and in the end, Mash hit Carpaccio on the head with the tennis racket. Because of that, Carpaccio lost consciousness while his head was bleeding. Finn thought it was a bit extreme. When Finn called Mash to apologize, Mash suddenly thanked him. Mash said he knew he was a klutz and that he was a nuisance to others. But because of Finn, he was able to continue being with them all. Because of that, Finn was touched. He tightened his hold on the crystal, and in the end, he told Mash it was nothing. As the thrilling story of Mash in a world full of magic continues, we move to the conclusion of his battle with Carpaccio. It showed the incredulous spectators questioning what just happened. Did what they watched really happen? Carpaccio, they said, was a savant chosen by a master Kane, and Mash just used him as a tennis wall. They were shocked and yelled that Mash defeated Carpaccio. Wahlberg's comment was that it was a total victory against a Master Kane user. In the next scene, Carpaccio is just lying on the ground while being looked at by Mash. Carpaccio seems to be gasping and can't move. In his mind, he wondered if that was pain. He can't stop bleeding, and each heartbeat brings pain throughout his body. He questioned if that's what pain really feels like. It's so bad and terrifying. He also realized and wondered how Finn endured all he did to him for other people. He saw Mash looking at Finn sleeping, recalling what Mash said, asking if he would still fight as bravely as Finn against him. In the end, he stated the obvious difference in strength between him and Finn. He was totally outmatched. Elsewhere, Margarette faced a group consisting of Ayorayo Morris and Mort Amato. Margarette listened to the surroundings, which made Ayorayo wonder. Margarette said that he hears the note tray. The two did not understand this. Margarette explained that power and pitch are the same to him. In terms of solfege, their strength was Ray. The higher their pitch, the stronger they are, and they were just higher than Do, the lowest. It was impossible for them to show him the coming of spring and be kind, and just leave their crystals there. The two were irritated at this and pointed out that it was a 2-on-1 situation, and Margarette didn't know what he was talking about. Moore summoned wolves using his spell wolves, and Ayorayo used rocks. In Moore's thoughts, he knew Margarette was as strong as the last divine visionary candidate, but they had each collected 3 coins. They were top class. They wouldn't lose in a 2-on-1 fight. Nevertheless, Margarette just used sounds and said Ray, a drop of gold and sun, where Ayorayo and Moore's magic was nullified. When Margarette attacked, the two tried to use their defensive spell. Their magic was struggling while thinking how they were losing to one student in a 2-on-1 battle, only using a beginner spell. In the end, Margarette broke their defense, and the two were sent flying. Ayorayo thought he couldn't stand up while his crystal fell from him. While Margarette reached for the crystal, he told them that his pitch was T. Because even together, they could only reach Ray, Margarette expected it to be clear to them the gap in strength between Margarette and them. After that, while the two were struggling to stand up, Margarette left. Suddenly, the host shouted that one team had been eliminated, so the exam was over. Dot was surprised at this, realizing that he didn't do anything. In the next scene, the contestants returned to the arena and were cheered by the audience. Mash and Dot immediately celebrated while chanting "Go Mushroom." What happened was that the two acted as if they were interviewing Mash as an MVP, and Mash's response was that he wanted cream puffs. Dot then shouted that they had gotten the answer and that they were done there. Suddenly, the surroundings went silent, which made Mash curious. Mash noticed it, and Wahlberg explained to him that the next thing coming to him was his toughest trial. The audience was scared and said that the real game was about to start, and the only person who could have defeated Rayne last year would emerge. Margarette appeared behind them with an extraordinary intensity. In the end, he said, "The ripening summer is here." The two contestants then had an intense stare-down. Margarette said that he was looking forward to their next test with Mash. Suddenly, something happened to Mash. Because of that, Finn asked what was the problem. Mash said that Mike was warning him. Finn remembered that it was Mash's pectoral muscle. After that, Mash just stared there. In the next scene, Wahlberg was with Kaldo Gehenna. Kaldo said that it seemed that Mash's winning streak was about to end because he was going to fight Margarette. The only reason why Rayne became a divine visionary was because Margarette decided not to participate last year. As the one leading in magic talent administration, he meticulously scrutinizes each candidate. And in his opinion, the definite candidate for divine visionary this year is Margarette Macaron. He witnessed Macaron's performance in the tournament he joined a few years ago. As for his second choice, I'm not sure either, he didn't finish. Wahlberg agreed with him. Kaldo laughed, which made Wahlberg curious, and then he apologized. Did Wahlberg agree with him under normal circumstances? Wahlberg didn't say anything there. Kaldo said that Wahlberg has a lot of expectations for MASH, but he can't see why he deserves to garner so much attention. In Kaldo's thoughts, Margarette is the right candidate to be a divine visionary, and he doubted whether MASH has the power to fight. The gap between the two is too big. After that, in the waiting room, Margarette was hanging out. LeBlanc was there thinking that MASH made him look like a fool in the first round, so he should pay. He approached Margarette and said that since MASH doesn't have magic and Margarette is a magic user, Margarette should show who is stronger. When he offered to cheat with Margarette using a laxative, Margarette immediately expelled him. Margarette then said that the next time he tries to ruin it for him, he will kill LeBlanc. The same goes for Order. The two had an intense stare down, and Order said that Margarette should do his job right, and he would remain silent. Margarette then said that's good. In LeBlanc's thoughts, even a divine visionary couldn't intimidate Margarette, which irked LeBlanc. In another waiting room, MASH was answering the question of why he was training at that level. Initially, Regro ordered him to. He said it was too difficult and exhausting and he didn't like it. But even though he kept complaining, he added weights. Now, he was proud of himself. While MASH was serious, he revealed he was just questioning himself, which Dot accompanied with a violin. In Finn's thoughts, no one was listening to MASH and he was just talking to himself. MASH just continued there talking to himself. Lemon also mimicked MASH and asked herself why she was an emotional burden. She explained that she didn't want it, but as time went on, her world became a man. He was her happiness and sadness. There she found herself accepting herself as a dependent. The reason she became a burden was because she was here. In Finn's thoughts, what they were doing was just a waste of time. Suddenly, Dot danced and asked Lemon if she could love him, to which Lemon responded, absolutely not. In Finn's thoughts, he wanted to go home. Dot screamed because of his broken heart and MASH's alarm went off. It was time for his protein shakes, oh he prepared one. MASH was drinking while Dot was crying. In Finn's thoughts, they were indeed strange. MASH explained that they need to nourish their muscles. It's also an aspect of training where Finn agreed. Suddenly, someone spoke from the side. Kaldo then appeared and said that he admired MASH's dedication, and he also wished to be like him. Finn was surprised and wondered how he got there. MASH recognized him as one of the bullies who is a divine visionary. They wondered what a divine visionary was doing there. Kaldo said that MASH had caught his interest. Kaldo asked MASH if he wanted to play. There was still time before the next round. MASH immediately refused because he said he was resting. Dot was surprised there. Dot told MASH that he would go far, and MASH agreed. Kaldo introduced himself as the head of the Magic Talent Administration, and it means that everyone who joins the Bureau of Magic will be scrutinized by him. And if he doesn't like what he sees, they won't become a divine visionary. But that's MASH's choice. He's only the head of the Magic Talent Administration. Suddenly, MASH decided to do what Kaldo wanted. He would play. Finn was surprised there. Kaldo said what's a game without a prize, so he decided that if MASH beat him, he would pass him on that test. Finn was surprised where our hero said sweet. MASH asked what game they would play. It was simply that. He explained that if you look, you lose. Dot and Finn were surprised there. MASH said he was okay with that game while swirling his hand around. Finn marveled at MASH's warm-ups, saying it was like pinwheels. Kaldo just stared there. In the continuation of MASH's exciting story in a world full of magic, we move to the time when MASH accepted Kaldo's challenge. Suddenly, Kaldo cast something that formed a circle around MASH's feet. MASH was puzzled. Kaldo explained that they would be playing a variation of you look, you lose. There's no rock, paper, scissors in it. And Kaldo added, if he pointed in a direction, he would start a countdown from 3, and MASH should avoid looking in that direction until Kaldo finishes counting. This would be done without stepping out of the circle he made. Finn, on the other hand, thought that this seemed too much in MASH's favor, so he wondered what the catch of the game was. In the end, MASH agreed to Kaldo's rules. Kaldo explained that they would have 3 rounds, and if MASH manages to avoid him 3 times, MASH would win. He asked MASH if he was ready, and before long, they started. Kaldo pointed upwards, and unexpectedly, an attack emerged from MASH's feet. Finn was surprised. As Mash was about to be hit, Finn thought that it wasn't really an ordinary game. Kaldo was using magic to force Mash out of the circle. Fortunately, Mash managed to dodge it and kept himself until Kaldo finished the countdown. Kaldo praised Mash because he made it past round 1. Before long, they proceeded, and this time Kaldo pointed in 2 directions. Because of this, Kaldo's next attack came from those 2 directions. In Finn's mind, Mash wouldn't be able to dodge it without looking. Nevertheless, Mash was able to deflect Kaldo's 2 attacks with his fists. Kaldo was impressed with what Mash had done, remarking that it was unusual. Suddenly, Kaldo produced a sword which surprised Mash. Kaldo explained that the sword was enchanted with black flames where anything it touched would burn until it disappeared from the world. Mash wouldn't be able to repeat what he did earlier. Our protagonist commented that it was scary. Finn then shouted, saying it was too dangerous and that Mash should stop it. Mash responded that he would have stopped it if he could. Kaldo immediately started the 3rd round and pointed in 3 directions, which shocked Finn and made him realize that Mash could only look down. Kaldo rushed to attack Mash with his sword, but Mash managed to dodge his attacks. While the countdown was going on, Mash was nearly hit because his duck coincided with Kaldo's attack on him. When Mash and Finn thought that Mash was about to be hit by Kaldo's attack, Mash found a way, planting his feet on the circle and lifting the circle to dodge without leaving it. In Finn's mind, Mash dug the circle and jumped while looking down. Upon Mash's landing, a crow came up to him and took his cream puff, making him look to the right. He then realized that he lost because of that. While Kaldo was smiling, Mash admitted that he lost. Kaldo, however, said that it wasn't counted and that they should just call it a draw. Mash was confused, whereupon Kaldo stated that it was only fair. Mash then agreed. Kaldo suddenly explained that at Mash's current level, it would be difficult for him to compete against Margarette. After that, Kaldo left and apologized for bothering Mash. Mash was left staring, causing Finn to ask what the problem was. Mash stated that he would have been finished if Kaldo hadn't hesitated earlier. He added that Kaldo didn't enchant any spells. Meanwhile, in Kaldo's thoughts, he noticed that Mash was ready to block his sword with his forehead earlier. He wondered what Mash's reason was for wanting to become a divine visionary, willing to risk his life for it. However, he also realized that it would be beneficial if Mash were on their side, so he would wait for Mash to reach his level. In the next scene, the time for the final exam arrived. It was a one-on-one battle. The rules were simple: either put your opponent to sleep or make them surrender to win. Now it was time for the first matchup. Mash Burnedead versus Margarette Macaron. Margarette stated that Mash was determined to continue, but she claimed that wouldn't happen. Mash just stared. In Finn's mind, if Mash lost there, he and his father would lose everything. In Wahlberg's thoughts, despite the storied history of Easton, Margarette's talent is truly hard to find, so this was the time for Mash to prove himself. Margarette then spoke up, saying that Mash had a purpose in life, and that was to give her what she desperately sought. Mash found that to be a funny joke. The host then shouted and announced the start of their match. Mash waited and reached into his pocket. He took out a cream puff, saying he needed calories first. Margarette remarked that it was a coincidence because she also wanted a snack. She took out a fried shrimp and repeatedly dipped it into tartar sauce. Mash commented and asked whether Margarette could still taste the shrimp with that much tartar sauce. Margarette responded, asking what kind of nonsense question that was. Margarette explained, with wide open eyes, that the reason she was doing it was because the tartar sauce was delicious, and shrimp existed to make it more delicious. Mash was scared and said that Margarette had the eyes of a madman, implying that it would be difficult. In Dot's thoughts, based on his biased reasoning, the crazier a person was, the stronger they were. That meant Margarette was strong. Meanwhile, in Kaldo's thoughts, Orter chose Margarette because he trusted her. Orter had not interfered with Mash's match until now. That's how confident Orter was in Margarette's skills. And it meant that the difference in power between Margarette and Mash was so great that Margarette could easily crush Mash. After that, Margarette asked Mash if they could start. Margarette immediately released a tremendous magical energy in the arena. Finn felt weak, and Lance commented that it was no surprise they could feel that magical energy. He then realized that this was the power required to become a divine visionary. Mash charged forward while Margarette planned to let Mash show what he could do. Margarette used Nalcos, which shocked Finn and Dot because it was basic magic. Dot thought Mash would just get knocked out, but instead, he used Margarette's attack like a volleyball. When he received the attack, he commented that it was as heavy as a bowling ball. Mash was pushed back as he tried to resist. Dot couldn't believe what was happening and thought Mash was going to be sent flying into the wall. When the smoke cleared, Mash seemed to have disappeared, which made the audience wonder where he was. Mash suddenly appeared behind Margarette and hugged her. He jumped high and used spine magic, Hellfall, and brought Margarette down with tremendous speed. The audience was amazed and wondered what happened to Margarette. When Dot asked how Mash managed to escape before he hit the wall, Finn answered that it was due to backdashing. Finn explained that Mash ran backwards faster than the spell. Dot couldn't believe it. In Dot's thoughts, he found it strange that they were thinking about bowling and volleyball and other non-magic stuff. He thought it didn't fit in a magic school. Dot ended up saying oh well and shrugged it off as not a big deal. He was then surprised and revealed that Margarette was okay after Mash's attack. He wondered how Margarette managed to do that. Kaldo explained that Margarette used her magic to catch herself before she hit the ground. Furthermore, he pointed out that isn't it noticeable that Mash just named his attacks as if they were magic. On the other hand, the audience completely believed that Mash had magic. The fight immediately continued and Mash managed to get behind Margarette again. However, Margarette read Mash's attack and positioned herself first. Just when Dot thought it was the end for Mash, Margarette suddenly stopped. She said it seemed like Mash was protecting something in his robe. Mash then pulled out a cream puff. Margarette stated they couldn't give their all if there was something so important to Mash at risk, so he should set it aside for now. Mash complied and said he didn't know Margarette had a chivalrous side. After that, the audience was stunned and the host shouted with excitement. Finn wondered what that conversation was for, and Dot said he wanted to get those wasted seconds back. In Lance's thoughts, neither of them was giving their best yet and seemed to be testing each other. In Kaldo's thoughts, Margarette had the upper hand because of her second. He said that if either of them decided to end it, they could do it immediately. Margarette spoke up and said they should now enjoy themselves while preparing to attack again, to which Mash agreed while raising his fists. The scene suddenly shifted to Innocent Zero, who said that he had kept Mash waiting too long with apparent affection in his words. He was accompanied by Cell War and an unknown man, stating it felt like they were on a journey. Continuing the exciting story of Mash in a world full of magic, we turn to his face-off with Margarette. Both competitors and spectators were intensely focused. Suddenly, Margarette spoke, saying that she hoped Mash would show what he's got. She cast Sounds Fight on Mash, prompting Mash to prepare to punch. When the two attacks were about to clash, Margarette's attack just passed through Mash's fists. Because of this, Mash was hit with a loud noise that caused his eardrums to explode. Margarette said that Mash must have thought that such a trick would work against her attacks. A punch was not enough to stop her spells, she said. Mash was silenced, and after a while, he asked Margarette to repeat what she said because he had become deaf from her attack earlier. Margarette cast Sounds Fight again, stating that Mash was no match for her. Mash tried to block it with his hands, but Margarette said it wouldn't work. Mash was thrown by Margarette's attack into the wall. Mash vomited blood from the impact, and the spectators thought that Margarette's magic was too powerful. Mash noticed that the pain from Margarette's attack was coming from deep within him. Margarette commented that she should have expected to be let down, but Mash's performance was still disappointingly poor. Mash was not the tartar sauce she was looking for in her life, she said. After that, she cast Sounds, Surround Orchestra, and a multitude of speakers appeared surrounding Mash. Mash felt the pressure, and Margarette told him to prepare for the finale. Finally, Mash was bombarded with powerful sound magic from the surrounding speakers. Because of this, his friends were worried, while Kaldo just watched. As the smoke from the battle was shown, the spectators commented that Mash really had no match there. It was a one-sided battle, and that was why Margarette was a genius. Orator just stared at the events while Kaldo analyzed them. He thought that Margarette didn't need to give her all to win. Margarette was suddenly shocked. When the smoke from the fight cleared, it was revealed that Mash was gone. Because of this, the audience was also puzzled. Suddenly, someone pulled on Margarette's feet, and in a blink of an eye, her whole body was buried in the ground. The audience wondered again how Margarette was buried. Suddenly, something moved under the ground, and before long, Mash emerged. Mash dusted himself off while Margarette remained buried. Margarette was surprised that Mash found a way to avoid her reverberations. The spectators loudly asked, "How?" Finn said that he saw everything that happened. He explained that before Mash was hit by Margarette's spell, he dug a hole. The sound waves were reverberating, but the sound diminished or weakened when it hit an obstacle. So, Mash decided to dig down into the ground and use it as a sound damper. If Mash did that, he must have traveled faster than the speed of sound. This was somewhat terrifying. Suddenly, Mash took a stance and cast quadriceps magic, guillotine kick. The audience couldn't believe what they saw while Margarette's eyes widened at his attack. In the end, Mash landed a powerful kick on Margarette's face, which caused her to be sent flying. The audience was also shocked, saying they couldn't believe it. The host then shouted, saying that Mash had knocked down Margarette with just one attack. Mash then jumped and landed on Margarette. The audience reacted to this, asking if this was acceptable in a magic school. Mash tightened his fists and unleashed a barrage of punches on Margarette. He didn't stop, and it seemed like a storm of punches was unleashed by Mash. The audience shouted, asking if Mash was going too far. Meanwhile, Kaldo explained that Mash was aware at an instinctual level of just how formidable Margarette truly was. As Mash was punching, Margarette suddenly spoke, saying that this was what she was looking for, which surprised Mash and made him step back. Now, Margarette said she would show her true capabilities. The audience was astounded while Mash and Kaldo simply watched. Margarette used sound's metamorphosis and enveloped the area with her magic. Because of this, the eyes of the spectators widened as Margarette trapped the arena in her aura. The scene then switched to the Bureau of Magic, where Ryo was wondering how Mash was doing. Suddenly, Neri-Sean rushed in and reported that Innocent Zero was once again making moves. Ryo asked if one of their leaders was moving, and to send security there immediately. They would need Orter and Kaldo to buy them some time. Neri explained that the entire Innocent Zero was on the move, to which Ryo remarked that this wasn't good. The scene then shifted to Margarette's transformation. After Margarette cast Sound's metamorphose, she was enveloped by an immensely powerful magic that filled the entire arena. Here, it showed Margarette's seemingly deforming body as she was transforming. The audience couldn't figure out what was happening, saying they'd never seen such powerful magical power. Suddenly, the magic stopped emanating and the audience noticed something. Here, it showed Margarette's true form, which looked like a child. Because of this, the audience was shocked, and Mash noticed that Margarette now had hair. Margarette then told Mash to look at what he had done to her. She said that Mash was sinful, making a cross with her pinky fingers. Because of this, Mash laughed at what Margarette had done. Margarette then explained that she doesn't just sing, but in that form, she has full access to her true magical power. She said she would show it to Mash, and she snapped her fingers, appearing beside Mash. When Margarette blew in Mash's ear, his whole body seemed to tremble and he knelt down because of it. Lemon burst into tears, worried for Mash. The audience couldn't believe it, speculating that Mash's weak point might be his ears. Margarette releasing her magical power signifies the spell she is capable of using. While she was explaining, Mash suddenly interjected, saying he understood, and tried to punch her. However, Margarette suddenly disappeared, which puzzled Mash. Even the audience was taken aback by what happened. Margarette then called Mash, and when he turned around, Margarette was sitting atop the arena. Mash wondered how she got up there. Margarette continued her explanation, saying that she herself is sound, and she snapped her fingers again and suddenly teleported to Mash. Because of this, she was able to knock down Mash. Mash then asked if Margarette was a muscle type like him. Margarette said no and snapped her fingers again. She continued to snap her fingers, appearing to teleport around Mash. The audience was amazed, while Kaldo explained that Margarette's speed was now equivalent to the speed of sound. In order to catch Margarette without magic, you would need to break the sonic barrier. It showed Mash seemingly being beaten up by Margarette using her new transformation. Mash seemed helpless, which his friends couldn't believe. When Margarette tried to attack Mash again, Mash was able to dodge her attack. Because of this, Margarette was surprised and the audience wondered how Mash did it. Suddenly, Mash appeared behind her. Kaldo then explained that Mash used the properties of sound. Sound travels faster in liquid than in gas, and it's even faster in solids. By touching the wall, Mash was able to perceive the attack before it happened. For a single person to do that, they would need to have otherworldly reflexes. Margarette thought that it didn't matter as long as she could snap her fingers. However, when she tried it, it didn't work because of the tartar sauce scattered on her hand. She couldn't figure out when Mash had put it there, and in the end, Mash was able to catch her using his extraordinary strength. Continuing the exciting story of Mash in a world full of magic, we move to his dragging of Margarette. Because of that attack, he managed to knock down the newly transformed opponent. Dot shouted in surprise and asked if that was what defeated Margarette. Lance answered and said no, that it was just a temporary solution and it could still be reversed. Lance thought to himself that even he didn't know what the outcome of the fight would be. However, Margarette still had her seconds, so it wasn't impossible for Mash to end up in danger. Margarette admitted that Mash was indeed commendable. Mash was surprised, so Margarette explained that he was a strong opponent. After that, she suddenly used her second magic, Sound Second, Death Gong. Mash looked at it and asked what it was. Margarette explained that the spell could knock down anyone who heard it. She referred to it as Death Knell. In 1 minute, it would sound and cover a 2-kilometer-wide land with its sound. And the only way to stop it was for Mash to get her wand. But he shouldn't forget that she could move as fast as sound. Mash would have to catch her before a minute was up, or he would lose. His friends were nervous and said that Mash was indeed fast, but that was not enough. Dot said it was impossible. Lance, on the other hand, said that Mash's only hope was that they were confined to that arena. He thought if Margarette were running away from him, Mash wouldn't be able to do what he did earlier to stop Margarette. That was a difficult situation for Mash. Before long, Margarette prepared herself and began moving fast so that Mash couldn't catch her. Mash tried to reach her but only failed due to her speed. Margarette continued to toy with Mash as he tried to catch her. Margarette said that Mash's efforts were futile and that there were only 30 seconds left on her timer. As Mash continued to try and catch her, she began the countdown. Dot cried out in worry, saying that Mash had very little time left. Suddenly, Mash gripped the ground and, using his extraordinary strength, lifted half of the arena floor. Because of this, a barrier formed behind Margarette. The audience realized that Mash had done this to block the routes that Margarette could take. Upon thinking, Margarette realized that her only 2 choices were left or right. When she tried to go right, Mash was able to keep up with her. She thought that Mash had only guessed and couldn't really keep up with her, so he gambled on her going right. When Margarette thought that Mash had only made a guess and tried to go left, Mash was still able to keep up with her movements. She was surprised that Mash had faked a move. Tom commented on this and explained that what Mash did was a body feint. You're supposed to maneuver your torso in one direction to get the attention of your opponent's eyes while shifting in the other direction. He said that this was one of the basic skills in all sports while biting his nails. Margarette called Mash an idiot because she still had enough space, so it was impossible for him to catch her. Nevertheless, Mash was able to catch Margarette using his pinky finger. Margarette was shocked and couldn't believe that Mash was able to reach her with just his pinky. In the end, she was thrown off balance by Mash, wondering how that happened. Mash got Margarette's wand and immediately broke it with his hands. The audience was also very shocked and couldn't believe what was happening. Margarette's death gong didn't ring and finally disappeared, with the host announcing that the Sonic chase was over. Mash had defeated Margarette, getting him closer to becoming a divine visionary. Margarette just laughed and said that Mash had done all of that without any magic. She said she was fascinated by him and accepted her defeat. Mash just stared back. Unexpectedly, a disturbance suddenly occurred in the exam. A crack appeared in the sky, causing the people there to wonder. Before long, a chicken's foot emerged from it. Kaldo was also disturbed, and the surprise was clearly seen on the faces of Mash's friends. A giant monster emerged, ridden by Innocent Zero, who saluted them. The place took on an intense aura, and the people there recognized that the one causing the disturbance in the exam was Innocent Zero. Innocent Zero pointed, and the color of the entire place seemed to change, and monsters started to appear. It appears that Innocent Zero had stopped time there, causing the place to freeze. Everyone there seemed stuck and unable to move. They approached Mash, and said they were looking for him. They touched Mash's face and said how beautiful it was. They said they never thought they'd see Mash alive and couldn't explain the sadness they felt when they thought they had lost him. In the end, they referred to Mash as their son. Wow. What a revelation. They explained that once they absorbed Mash, they would be complete, so they decided to leave immediately. Suddenly, someone shouted for them to stop. It turned out to be Wahlberg, who was unaffected by Innocent Zero's magic. Wahlberg declared that he wouldn't just hand over Mash. One of the members of Innocent Zero thought that Wahlberg did not seem afraid of the dark magic that could stop time. However, they said they had prepared for Wahlberg. Suddenly, a giant axe cleaved into one of them, causing surprise. They were scared and asked what had happened. Was this the depth of Wahlberg's anger? Wahlberg laughed and said that if that person was scared now, then the worthless creature like him should leave, all while showing anger on his face. While the man was shaking with fear, Innocent Zero touched his shoulder. They told Wahlberg not to treat their allies that way. They said they would be sad about it. Wahlberg then asked about Innocent Zero's real goal. They explained that their only goal was to become a perfect human being. Immortal, forever beautiful, and powerful. That's all they wanted. Wahlberg said these goals were too obvious and was angered because Innocent Zero was capable of sacrificing so many lives for them. Stealing magic power, causing suffering, and even murder. Innocent Zero asked where the problem was with all of that. They didn't see what was so hard to understand about what they wanted. Their family exists for their benefit. They don't overlook Mash. Mash exists for them. They claimed Mash as theirs, and they would take him. Wahlberg laughed and said it seemed they were destined to be at odds. While releasing his 3 lines, he stated that Mash would be the hope of this world. So, if Innocent Zero wanted to take him, they would need to get past Wahlberg. Innocent Zero then said that decades had passed since their last fight. Both of them summoned their god power simultaneously. Wahlberg summoned Uranus, the god of the sky, while Innocent Zero called on Kronos, the god of time. Continuing the exciting story of Mash in a world full of magic, we return to the confrontation between 2 god-tier mages, Wahlberg and Innocent Zero. An intense aura formed between the 2 of them. Suddenly, Innocent Zero unleashed a horde of monsters and planned to direct them towards the people there. Wahlberg was shocked and Innocent Zero explained that he doesn't need anyone but Mash, so he intends to kill everyone there. Suddenly, Wahlberg shouted and released a strong magic surrounding him. Because of this, our hero and his friends regained consciousness. Wahlberg told them he would explain what was happening later and asked them to protect the students immediately. Our allies quickly acted to stop these monstrous creatures. Lance wondered what kind of creatures they were, to which Dot replied that he didn't know and only knew that they were evil, as was the situation there. Kaldo thought that Innocent Zero was there, so he needed to help Wahlberg. He used his powerful sword to kill the monsters. They were extremely strong, as powerful as double-liners. Dot wondered why there were so many monsters, to which Lance said not to cry and to just continue attacking. The 2 of them used their personal magic to destroy these deformed minions. Innocent Zero commented that Wahlberg left the situation to just a few people. Wahlberg told him that if he were Innocent Zero, he should be worrying about himself first, and immediately waved his wand. They were teleported to a place where there were no people. Wahlberg said that there they would not be disturbed in their battle. In the arena, our allies continued to fight, commenting that they couldn't even scratch the monsters. Lance explained that they just needed to hang on and backup would arrive. Suddenly, he noticed something and turned around. Upon looking back, they saw a giant spike sphere. Dot shouted out, asking what it was and what might happen if it were to fall on him. Cell War appeared, revealing that he was behind it. Dot noticed this and was startled. Meanwhile, the monsters kept attacking them and seemed to have them cornered. Dot pointed out that while Innocent Zero had been distracting them, none of the monsters had been targeting our cute hero. It seemed like a trap was being set up. Margarette commented that she expected Innocent Zero to have a definite plan to stop Wahlberg. Dot was shocked, asking if she was serious and how she knew this. She explained it was due to her woman's intuition and assumed that Dot might be gay because of his question. Dot suddenly shouted to Mash, saying that they would handle it here. Only Mash could possibly defeat Cell War. Mash agreed and left. Cell War was then shown preparing, while Mash was readying himself. Mash stared at the giant tower made of Cell War's carbon magic as Dot tried to remove it. The problem was that it would take Mash too long to reach the tower, and he would be targeted by the enemies once he started climbing. Suddenly, our hero drew back and kicked the tower with extraordinary strength. The bottom part of it was removed, and our hero repeatedly did this to lower the tower. Dot was dumbfounded, suggesting they should just play Dharma Drop with the tower. Before long, Mash shortened the tower to the point where he was face to face with Cell War. As Cell War looked at Mash, he recalled what Mash had done to him. He said they had met again since the entrance ceremony at Easton. However, Mash's destruction of his tower was meaningless. As he spoke, Mash remained silent. Soon, he asked anxiously whether he was correct that Cell War was next to him during the entrance ceremony at Easton. It was clear that Mash didn't remember Cell War, which triggered an overflowing rage in Cell War. The scene then shifted to Dot, Lance, and Margarette, who were fending off the monsters using their personal magic. Dot commented that it seemed like the ugly creatures were endless. He noticed something on the side, and when he looked, he saw a stroller with a baby in the middle of the battle. He wondered why there was a baby there. Suddenly, the baby cast a spell called BBs, and Dot was transformed into a baby. It showed that Dot could only make baby sounds as a result. The baby laughed and transformed, which Dot noticed. The man introduced himself as Sitter Baby, a member of a group called the Six Criminal Canes. He explained that his magic could turn anyone into a baby, removing their experience and skills in the process. That was how Dot would die, weak and helpless. Dot, speaking in baby sounds, yelled back, saying "really?" challenging the man to taste his magic. He used his Ebfum, or rather Explom, against the man. However, what came out of his wand was just a fart like smoke. Because of this, Baby Dot cried and quickly crawled away from Sitter Baby. In his thoughts, he feared his situation was bad and he was certain to die because he had no magic. He thought he needed Lance's help, so he started looking for him. Soon, he saw Lance and called out to him in his baby voice, asking for help. Lance noticed him, and when he turned to look at him, he stared intensely. Baby Dot shouted, as if he wanted to say something, but couldn't be understood. Because of this, Lance thought Dot was playing a prank on him. He snapped, asking if Dot thought it was a good time to joke around, while Dot kept making baby sounds. Lance was puzzled, stating he couldn't understand a word Dot was saying. Suddenly, someone cast BBs from the side. Lance managed to dodge it while carrying Dot, wondering what kind of magic that was. He realized that was the problem with Dot and why he had become a baby. He said there wouldn't have been a problem, but Dot was still annoying even as a baby. He even found Dot's face irritating. Suddenly, the monsters jumped up, making Lance look over. He quickly used Graveyard to stop them. Annoyed, Lance realized he had to protect Baby Dot while fighting those ugly minions. A noise came from the side, and it turned out a rattle had fallen on the ground. Because of Baby Dot's instincts, he crawled towards it with a smile. Lance was surprised and yelled out, asking where Baby Dot was going. He explained that he had unexpectedly entered the baby zone. Lance lost focus and Sitter cast his magic again. As a result, Lance was hit and also transformed into a baby. Dot shouted while Lance tried to calm him down with their respective baby sounds. He said Dot didn't understand baby sounds, but he realized that even so, he understood that Lance was annoyed with him. Suddenly, a monster attacked them, causing the two to jump and roll away. Another rattle fell, and before long, the two crawled towards it quickly. Because of that, they were nearly killed by the monster. Dot said he couldn't resist his baby instincts, while Lance needed stronger self-control. Sitter commented that their defeat was certain when he cast his magic on them. He said they could only use up to 1/10 of their magical power. Nothing could be happier than a one-sided battle where your enemies were defenseless. He said they couldn't resist, so no one posed a threat to him. Dot thought their situation was bad. Sitter then ordered the monsters to attack them. However, Lance suddenly used sectional Graveyard, which resulted in the Weird Man Baby and his ugly minions falling. While Sitter lay sprawled out, he wondered how Lance was able to do that despite still being a baby. He said that was impossible. Dot explained that restricting Lance's power didn't make much of a difference. He said he used the loss of his magic to focus on a smaller area. There was no doubt that Dot was facing a powerful magic. The caster was very weak, but despite that, it was still really strong. Lance was indeed the top student that year. Using his baby sounds, Lance taunted Sitter that he was right about the battle being one-sided. Baby Dot commented that he still didn't understand what he was saying. Kaldo said that it was rare to see people with talents not matching their age. He didn't expect anything different from Easton. In the end, Baby Lance managed to defeat Sitter, so they returned to normal. In another scene, Cellwar was shown fuming at Mash, telling him not to say that he had forgotten him. The area was enveloped in an intense aura as Mash just stared there. Mash looked around like an idiot, and in the end, it appeared he really didn't remember. Cellwar was dumbfounded there, his face showing a touch of dismay. As the exciting story of Mash continues in a world filled with magic, we move on to Ryo and Neri riding their broom. Neri asked Ryo about the relationship between Wahlberg and Innocent Zero. Ryo answered and explained that the society they knew was founded by an excellent magic user, the architect of what would become the Divine Visionary. His power was indeed divine. The name of that man was Adam. In his lifetime, no one was able to match his dark magic. Wahlberg and Innocent Zero were reportedly Adam's most powerful students back then. Doesn't that mean that their powers are almost on par? Ryo agreed and explained that if Innocent Zero attacked with the hidden plan, well, I don't know. He didn't continue. If Wahlberg were defeated, their situation would turn dire. The scene then shifted to the showdown between Wahlberg and Innocent Zero. Innocent Zero asked if Wahlberg was as happy to see him as he was. He revealed his face, and it turned out that he is Slender Man. Wahlberg was shocked and seemed at a loss for words. Innocent Zero stated that Wahlberg's reaction didn't seem too good. It seemed like his old friend was looking at him as some kind of monster. Because of that, Innocent Zero once again changed his appearance and asked if Wahlberg would treat him as a friend if he looked like that, revealing Innocent Zero's new face. Wahlberg then said that Innocent Zero had abandoned his humanity. However, he explained that he is more human than others and that he has human desires. His greed knew no bounds. On that day, he expected to reclaim Burnedead and hoped to kill Wahlberg as well. Suddenly, he cast a spell times the living dead, revealing a coffin and a clock behind it. At this, Wahlberg was taken aback and said that the spell was forbidden to use. The scene then shifted to Cellwar, who asked if Mash really had forgotten who he was. He just stared at Mash, the scene gradually zooming into his eyes, revealing what Cellwar looked like from his perspective. Mash remained silent as Cellwar grew angry with him. Cellwar quickly attacked using his carbon magic, but Mash managed to dodge it. At least Mash remembered his magic, he said. He heard that his friend Abyss had survived their previous battle, comparing it to a cockroach. He also explained that after killing Mash, he would make sure to kill Abyss as well. Mash just stared at him. He noted Mash's brave face and asked him if he wanted to be skewered like he did to Abyss. After that, Cellwar immediately launched a barrage of attacks using his Carbrain. The scene then shifted to Dot, who was still battling the monsters. He hoped that Mash was still safe because it seemed like Cellwar had sent many carbon spears at him. In the previous battle, he said he was able to get close to Cellwar because of Abel's dolls, but now he had no help. The scene returned to the battle between Cellwar and Mash, showing a flustered Cellwar. He watched Mash run over his attacks as if they were nothing. Our protagonist continued to do this and managed to jump towards Cellwar. Upon landing, he managed to hit Cellwar in the face while looking at him like a fool. He brought down Cellwar and just watched him suffer. Cellwar wondered how Mash had done it because in the past, Mash had struggled to withstand his attacks. Mash then said that he now remembered Cellwar as his formidable enemy from before. But now, he said, he knew what Cellwar's tricks were. He declared GG's because he had mastered them. The scene then shifted to an explanation of who Adam Jobs was. Blessed with overwhelming magical ability, he was the most powerful magic user the world had seen in centuries. From education to magic to the establishment of the Bureau, his broad influence was felt in many aspects of magical society. But his later years were mostly devoted to public aid for those unable to use magic. Noblesse oblige. The strong serve the weak. He left this idea to his 3 students, one of whom was Wahlberg. And now, Innocent Zero used his magic to employ Adam in his fight against Wahlberg. Adam emerged from the coffin, leaving Wahlberg completely dumbstruck. Innocent Zero explained that he had finally obtained the magic to resurrect the life from the prison of the flesh. However, of course, he said it could only restore the body to its former state, and he could not restore its mind. Necrosmith then intervened, stating that he could handle it from there. He claimed that his specialty was marionettes, and Wahlberg would not notice the difference in Adam's movements from those of his former master. Wahlberg, furious, questioned how far they intended to provoke him. He released a remarkable magic power that enveloped him. Innocent Zero then explained that their master had lived a long time, but even he could not overcome aging. But there, he said, he had restored him to the vigor of his life. His magic power, he claimed, remained the most powerful. Innocent Zero continued to tease Wahlberg, saying their master cherished him greatly, so wasn't he happy to see him again. Wahlberg then attacked while recalling a conversation with his master, Adam. Wahlberg explained that noblesse oblige was a phrase used by people who did not want to strive to gain protection from others. Adam agreed that Wahlberg had a point there. In the end, what was the purpose of his self-sacrifice for others? Adam suddenly got angry and called Wahlberg a fool, asking who told him to argue with his master. Was Wahlberg trying to outdo him? To which Wahlberg responded with a no. Adam then said he was just teasing Wahlberg, so he should not be upset. It was okay if he was too young to understand that, he said while laughing. But on a serious note, Wahlberg would surpass him because he was strong. The scene returned to the fight between Innocent Zero and Wahlberg, showing Wahlberg crushing the puppet that Innocent Zero had summoned. This caused Innocent Zero to be somewhat surprised. Wahlberg explained that their master was the greatest person he had ever known. But as time goes on, they need to value the present. That was why he wouldn't show mercy, proving that now he was the strongest of all. The scene then switched to the fight between Mash and Cellwar. Mash suddenly asked Cellwar why he was being targeted. Cellwar then asked Mash if he knew about the forbidden magic of body construction. He explained that it uses dark magic to create an immortal heart made from the hearts of 6 of your relatives. Mash just stared, apparently very stunned. Their father had prepared 6 children to raise in order to obtain their hearts. In short, Mash was a creation of their father. He was created for his perfect body, and Mash exists for his part. At this, our protagonist was shocked. Mash should be happy about it, Cellwar said, because it was an honor. He would be part of a near-godlike being. Mash stared and asked if that meant he was like the protein needed to build muscles. Is that what he is? Because of that, Cellwar couldn't say anything about Mash's stupidity. In the end, our protagonist realized the heavy burden and simply said it was too much to carry. The two of them then stared at each other. Mash became depressed and said that the information was extraordinary and his entire life was just a sacrifice. He just said oh well and decided to sleep instead. He fell asleep immediately but was quickly woken up by Cellwar. Mash said he hoped that all of this was just a dream. Mash then asked if he and Cellwar were siblings. Cellwar explained that he was just a clone made using their father's blood and a corpse. Mash said he understood. Cellwar said he exists just so their father could reach his goals. He said it was the highest honor to be part of his father's body. But his father chose someone worthless like Mash, and he couldn't stand it. While he was trash talking and saying that Mash's life was really worthless, Mash suddenly punched him, causing him to fall down. Mash explained that it didn't matter if his life had a deeper meaning or none at all. He wouldn't be stopped, so Cellwar should give everything he can. Cellwar stared back and thought he shouldn't be swayed by Mash's challenges, but Mash had made him bleed. Because of this, he decided to start with his powerful attack. Mash should show him what he got. Suddenly, Cellwar summoned Hephaestus, the god of iron. In the continuation of the exciting story of Mash in a world full of magic, we return to Cellwar summoning Hephaestus, the god of iron. Our protagonist was left asking, what? Cellwar explained that this was the full power of his wand. Its true form. Mash apparently understood this. Cellwar said that magic can evolve in countless ways, depending on who's using it and how. He immediately attacked after that using Diamond Cutter. Mash was able to dodge it and said it was a close call. Cellwar's attack hit their arena and their school, which annoyed Mash. Cellwar explained that those blade discs were diamond tipped, so there was nothing it couldn't cut. He continued to attack with that magic while explaining that those would slice Mash until his body got chopped into pieces. The discs kept returning to Mash, but he managed to dodge them. Mash decided to ignore the discs and go straight for Cell War. However, he almost got cut in half by one of the discs. Mash's clothes got torn while he kept dodging those discs. As Cell War controlled his two discs, Mash noticed that he was still holding back. Mash saw that Cell War had 4 diamond discs, which meant he really couldn't get close to him. This was bad since 4 of those were too many. Cell War taunted him, asking if he was scared now. But if he were Mash, he wouldn't try to run, unless Mash was ready to sacrifice all the people there. He brought out a gigantic, spiked object in the sky, calling it the Black Diamond. Mash remarked that Cell War knew a lot of things. Cell War explained that a wand unleashed via summon spell not only has its own power enhancements, but the level of magic power you can unleash is unmatched. He said those thousands of diamond shards would pierce everyone in that space. He asked if Mash thought he found a good willing place and asked if Mash liked those worthless hangers. He said they would just die anyway and resumed his attack. While Mash was dodging, Cell War told him to give up. As the 2 discs were heading towards Mash, he turned his back, which puzzled Cell War. Before long, our protagonist suddenly started to run fast. Cell War was shocked and asked why Mash was running in the opposite direction. What was he doing, abandoning the students? He fell silent, thinking that maybe Mash was scared of him and had given up. In unexpected events, Mash suddenly appeared behind him like something out of a horror movie. Mash explained that he circled the whole school to outrun those diamond discs. Cell War was puzzled about how he outran them and wondered how fast Mash had to run to do that. He also noticed that Mash was tightening his grip on him because he was trying to dig him in. Cell War then suddenly spoke, saying it was a shame for Mash's effort because he forgot that he could do that. Cell War transformed his skin into diamond to protect himself. He explained that no attack would break his diamond skin, but he could cut through Mash. He was guiding his diamond disc to hit both of them, explaining that he was protected while Mash would take the lethal attack. Before long, the disc hit Mash's back, causing blood to splatter everywhere. The bloodied Mash fell to the ground. Cell War stepped on his head while laughing. He said Mash wasn't that strong after all and was just a waste. He trash-talked Mash, and before long, he decided to kill Mash's friends as well. He then noticed something under his foot and realized it was a cream puff, which left him wondering what was happening. Mash stood up holding a cream puff, announcing that the cream puff party had started. Cell War was utterly confused about how Mash had survived. Cell War couldn't grasp what was happening as Mash kept feeding him heaps of cream puffs. Mash continued doing this until Cell War's mouth was filled with cream puffs. Little by little, Cell War began to choke on them. In the end, Mash put Cell War in a headlock while he choked on the cream puffs. Hypoxia was suddenly explained here. It was mentioned that if the oxygen supply to the brain is insufficient, it can result in hallucinations. The incident was explained how Mash managed to dodge. Before the diamond cutter hit him, Mash realized that it would be too difficult to punch it at the right time, so he didn't do that. Because of that, he just tried to use a choke hold against Cell's diamond skin. Using the explosive strength of his biceps, Mash cut off the oxygen to the carotid artery, resulting in him knocking out his opponent within a second. After Cell War lost consciousness, his giant black diamond shattered. Mash explained that the school was important to him, so if they wanted to destroy it, they should be prepared to be choked until they faint. We then return to the fight between Wahlberg, Innocent Zero, and Necros Mans. Necros explained that he was facing Wahlberg Bagan, a former divine visionary who brought order to that place. And to this day, he leads as the best magic user in their world. His power assures that he is the strongest in the whole world. However, it was mentioned that it only applies to the current superficial world, and Adam was made to cast Dark Impact by him. A powerful magic that was capable of piercing a mountain flew by Wahlberg. Necros explained here that Adam's magic was boasted to engulf everything into the void. After that, Necros cast the Dark Snake using Adam. Wahlberg managed to dodge it, but his clothes were grazed, causing them to tear. Necros explained that this was the power Adam used to control that world. His dark magic. It was said that it had the ability to send anything it touched to the void, so even other magic was not an exception. Dark magic reportedly couldn't be repelled by any other type of spell. He amusingly referred to it as his new toy, and of all his control, Adam was the most beautiful. He continued to use it and cast Dark Snake Double. Just as he thought that Wahlberg would be hit by it, Wahlberg managed to repel that powerful magic. Necros couldn't believe that Wahlberg was able to do that. After that, Wahlberg produced a sphere and sharp objects. He directed it at Necros and surrounded him with it. Before long, Necros' body was slashed into pieces. Because of this, he panicked. Wahlberg then told him not to worry and explained that his magic could control space. He just moved Necros' body parts to a nearby location and he wouldn't die from it. There, Necros realized that the way Wahlberg was able to stop his dark magic was by removing it from space itself. He cast Dark Impact Abs all towards Wahlberg and thought that he wouldn't be able to overcome that dark magic, and even Wahlberg wouldn't be able to remove it in time. However, it was a piece of cake for our headmaster to negate Necros' attack. Necros couldn't believe the range of Wahlberg's broken magic. He was now controlling the person who once ruled that world. Yes, Wahlberg was the strongest now, but it was said to be impossible for there to be such a big gap between the skills of the two, especially since he was using dark magic, because dark magic is the prime of all magic. He used Dark Tremendos and released a giant circle to attack Wahlberg. Necros explained that it was a max-level dark magic, and if their magic clashed, there would be no chance that dark magic would lose. Wahlberg was intrigued and said that it seems Necros was mistaken in thinking that Wahlberg had already used his spell. He explained that all he had used so far was just the ability of his wand. If Necros wanted to see Wahlberg cast a spell, he should watch. An extraordinary magic enveloped the area, while Necros could hardly believe it. While Necros was releasing Dark Tremendos, Wahlberg prepared and cast Space Sacrifice. Suddenly his power engulfed the area, and it seemed to disregard Necros' max-level dark magic. Innocent Zero then remarked that it seems Wahlberg is still not weakening. We return to the showdown between Wahlberg and Innocent Zero. At this time, Innocent Zero is the one facing Wahlberg. Innocent Zero attacked using Time's Code, and Wahlberg immediately countered it with Space's Spastic Bout. He used it to remove himself from his position and teleport behind Innocent Zero. However, Innocent Zero suddenly ended up behind him, so he wondered if he was manipulating time to do that. Innocent Zero immediately used Time's Rewound on Wahlberg and hit half of his body. Suddenly, half of Wahlberg's body withered, so he was shocked. Innocent Zero then said he was going to target Wahlberg's legs next. Wahlberg realized that he was using the openings in his attacks. Adding to this is the frequency of his use of powerful time spells. He wondered how much this monster has grown stronger. It seems he needs to use his magic to completely sever that area. Wahlberg used Space's Bout in that area, but he realized that it was still not enough to stop Innocent Zero from abusing the time lag, so he needs to cut the space there more carefully as much as he can. He kept cutting the space, and finally, it stopped. Just when he thought he had stopped Innocent Zero, he suddenly appeared behind him and said that Wahlberg would need to eat more rice to defeat him. Innocent Zero used Time's Rewound while Wahlberg wondered when Innocent Zero had dodged. After Innocent Zero's magic hit, Wahlberg's left hand completely disappeared. Wahlberg couldn't believe it as he was writhing in pain. Innocent Zero said that Wahlberg's struggle was meaningless. The difference in their power had become too great. He said he prioritizes himself and his ambition. He won't make any sacrifices to slow that down. While Wahlberg was continuously taking care of the people around him and not putting himself first. He explained that people without ego are weak. They are put in danger because they put others first. He found that to be sad. Meanwhile, Wahlberg was just silent and had his eyes closed. Wahlberg looked back at his past and wondered if a life is only for oneself. He explained that he was born with a weak body and his grades in school weren't that high. There was no place for someone like him at school, so he rarely attended. Due to his lack of confidence, he became fearful. He didn't want to be rejected by others. So to solve that problem, he was the one who first rejected them. He began to see the world as a pessimist and regarded it as a bland and boring thing. And at that time, he met his master, Adam. His master would often visit him without notice and always brought animal trivia to share with him. Even though he refused him several times, he still came, regardless of the weather and his mood. He tried to involve him over and over again, and one day he asked him why. Why was Adam doing this for him? Adam pondered how to answer, and finally, he said that he just couldn't leave Wahlberg alone. When Wahlberg heard this, he was saved from himself. He was saved by Adam's words and actions. Wahlberg told Innocent Zero to go ahead and live only for himself if that's what he wanted. But the only reason he's alive today is because of the kindness of others. So he could never ignore those weaker than him. Innocent Zero then realized that Wahlberg was about to unleash his most powerful magic. Wahlberg said that he would use it even if it cost him his life. Innocent Zero explained that even among the three-liners, it's very rare to achieve that kind of power. The epitome of magic. Wahlberg used space as thirds. Uranus inclination there. Innocent Zero explained that it was a third spell, a magic that unleashes the power of the god residing in that wand. He supposed that Wahlberg really didn't weaken due to age. Wahlberg told him that he was sure Innocent Zero knew that the magic of Uranus, the god of the sky, capable of erasing everything within a space, cannot be evaded. It was then realized that Wahlberg was prepared to sacrifice himself in that battle. Wahlberg explained that as the headmaster of that school, he would go beyond that. Wahlberg activated his magic, and the sphere that Uranus held began to spin rapidly. As that was happening, Innocent Zero quickly used Time's Unmove, which froze the entire place. He said that Wahlberg must also know that no type of attack can affect a person who can control time. He attacked Wahlberg and hit his entire body. Wahlberg would not survive those wounds. However, it was shown that Wahlberg's magic preparation continued behind him. Because of this, Innocent Zero wondered why that magic was still continuing even though the caster's wounds were fatal. Wahlberg explained there that the thirds unleash the true power within the wand. If you pour enough magic power into it, even if the caster dies, the will of the wand will continue to cast the spell on its own. Innocent Zero said that Wahlberg was insane. Wahlberg explained that he had set aside all his power for that moment. Innocent Zero then realized that Wahlberg really intended to sacrifice himself to kill him completely. Innocent Zero would be destroyed by Wahlberg's third's magic. Innocent Zero also realized there that Wahlberg had planned this from the start. Wahlberg explained that he had not yet achieved his entire goal. He said that world could still be a better place. It could be a place where people respect each other and accept each other's weaknesses. That was the reason why he had to save them. The weak and fragile souls. Those who were like him before. That's why he needed to lead his students from the start, just like his master did for him. He would show it through action while performing his third's magic. It exploded and engulfed the entire area where he and Innocent Zero were fighting. After all that, everything suddenly returned to normal, which made Wahlberg wonder. Wahlberg couldn't believe it and thought that Innocent Zero had reversed time. He was continuously attacked by Innocent Zero, causing gaping holes in his body. Wahlberg was badly beaten while Innocent Zero was holding him by the head. He talked to him and said that Wahlberg was indeed strong, but he would always be stronger than him. He said he lived only for himself, so Wahlberg couldn't surpass him. Wahlberg, on the other hand, thought how cruel fate was. It seems that the ideals of their master might never come true. He wondered if the world he was dreaming of was so easy to destroy to the point that it could be shattered by a small, greedy, and selfish mind. Innocent Zero pointed a blade at his forehead while he accepted the situation. Before killing Wahlberg, Innocent Zero bid him farewell. However, in an unexpected turn of events, our hero Mash arrived and kneed Innocent Zero in the face. We return to his kick against Innocent Zero. Mash fluttered his feet to keep himself flying while Innocent Zero just stared. Wahlberg was angry because he came there when he was the one Innocent Zero was after. Mash explained that he was raised to be respectful to his elders. Wahlberg then thought that for Mash, he was no different from an old man needing help to cross the road. Innocent Zero immediately took action and wrapped Wahlberg in some dark magic. He imprisoned him in an egg-like sphere. Innocent Zero explained that because of his continuous reconfiguration of his body, he had gained the ability to steal other people's magic. He claimed to have acquired the dark magic from their teacher, Adam. Now it was Wahlberg's turn, and he was going to take his space magic. Mash immediately acted to save Wahlberg. Mash was able to free Wahlberg from the dark magic, but Innocent Zero said it was all too late. It turns out he had already stolen Wahlberg's space magic and used space as bout to destroy the mountains there. A large percentage of the area instantly disappeared while Mash watched. Seeing this, Mash said, "Oh my gosh." Wahlberg couldn't believe it. It seemed like Innocent Zero had a larger magical capacity than him because of his testing of his magic. Innocent Zero said that he had the necessary power to rule that world, and it was within his reach to take it. He said that he would target Mash next, while our hero just stared. Wahlberg got nervous because if Innocent Zero got Mash, all hope would be lost. Suddenly, Mash tried to kick Innocent Zero in the face. However, he suddenly felt something in his foot, causing our hero to back off. That was close. Did Mash feel it? The overwhelming difference in their powers. He said that he would bring it home with him. Suddenly, Innocent Zero lost control of his power and seemed to be enveloped by it. It showed Innocent Zero's distorted body because of the incident. Mash was puzzled. Wahlberg explained that his magic power was more than his body could handle. Innocent Zero's situation suddenly stopped and he seemed tired. He said that it didn't mean anything, that Mash was just one ingredient and there was nothing else. Mash just stared. Mash's only purpose in life, he said, was to elevate him to a higher level of being. Wahlberg said that Innocent Zero was just letting his ego run wild and that Mash had the right to decide the course of his life. Mash agreed. Innocent Zero laughed and questioned what Wahlberg said. He insisted that a human without magic would never be able to live in that life. Because of that, our hero was hurt. Suddenly, Innocent Zero attacked while asking Wahlberg if what he said was correct. As Innocent Zero's attack was about to hit, Wahlberg thought that he had very little power left, so he couldn't dodge it. Mash was able to get there and saved Wahlberg. Wahlberg was surprised, but it wouldn't change the fact that Innocent Zero was too powerful. Suddenly, Mash spoke and said that it was very convenient. In a world where magic is everything, the most powerful magic user is the worst person. He said it was okay as a reason to crush its magic with his muscles, and after he defeats him, the world will then accept him. Innocent Zero laughed and said he needed time to get used to his body, so he would leave for now. Mash just stared as Wahlberg was surprised that Innocent Zero decided that so easily. Suddenly, Innocent Zero cast something at the Easton Magic School, in the arena. The ugly monsters gathered there and transformed into a giant multi-headed monster. Innocent Zero said they would finish their battle next time, if they survived against that monster. The minions slowly gathered, causing Mash and Wahlberg to wonder. While showing the monster that was larger than the entire school, it was explained that that apparition could destroy the entire city without any effort. Mash sounded confident earlier, so he should stop it if he can. He should show that there is a non-magic user capable of doing such things. Mash just stared. Wahlberg realized that Innocent Zero was testing Mash's strength, but the difference in their power was too vast. Not long after Innocent Zero left, time began to move again throughout the area. The people there regained consciousness and wondered why they seemed to have fallen asleep. When they looked around, they noticed the giant monster that Innocent Zero had created, causing them to panic. They noticed that it was heading towards them, causing them to scream. The monster suddenly swept the ground, causing large rocks to fly towards the arena. The people were surprised and wondered why they were its target. As the rocks were heading towards the arena, Lance suddenly heard his sister Anna calling him. Because of this, he gained the strength to stop the rocks using his gravioli. The people were surprised. Lance was thankful that Anna was always there when he needed her. Dot was confused and asked what that cutscene was for. He immediately used his Explom and directed it towards the monster. However, the monster blocked it with a magic shield. Dot was surprised and speechless, not knowing where the barrier came from. Kaldo explained to him that it was called a magic nullifying barrier. He was sure that there was another magic user controlling it, so until they stopped it, their magic would be ineffective against the monster. Their only option was to find the magic user responsible for it and stop them. The monster continued to move while this was happening. Dot thought that whoever was behind it must be hiding. He added that the monster was close to them and thought it was already too late. It showed the students crying out of fear of the monster. Just when they thought it was the end of their school, as the monster approached them, it suddenly got stuck and couldn't move. Because of that, the students were puzzled. No matter how much the monster tried, it couldn't move, so the students noticed that something was holding it back. It then showed Mash holding the chain wrapped around the monster, and it turned out he was the one doing it. Before long, the students also noticed this and recognized that it was Mash. As Mash was pulling the giant chain, the monster was also pulling it back. The students were stunned, and it seemed like Mash was playing tug-of-war with the monster, and their strengths seemed to be equal. Nevertheless, they continued to bully Mash and still didn't believe in him. They still didn't accept Mash being a non-magic user. While this was happening, Mash continued to compete in strength with the powerful monster. While other students were speechless, one stood up for Mash and asked if it still mattered that Mash was a non-magic user. The student questioned whether it mattered that he couldn't use magic while Mash kept fighting. The student made them realize that Mash was trying to save them and their school, so they should stop being judgmental. This student started a "You Can Do It" chant to cheer for Mash. Before long, all the students there were also cheering for Mash. Finn was surprised and said he wouldn't believe what happened if someone just told him about it. Mash has always been a pariah. He was always on the verge of being expelled. Mash, who couldn't use magic. In a world where magic is the most important thing, he is now changing the rules there while showing that all the students are on his side and they are shouting his name to encourage him in his fight against the giant monster. Before long, Finn smiled and joined in cheering for Mash. After that, it showed Mash continuing to fight with all his strength against the monster, and he greeted the monster in the air and then threw it down. Because of that, the giant monster was buried in the ground while it was vomiting blood. Continuing with Mash's exciting story in a world full of magic, we go to a man who is running. It turns out he's running from order, but before long he is caught by orders and magic. Kaldo and Dot also arrive and see the two of them. The man asks for Kaldo and Dot's help. Kaldo thought that this man was the one controlling the giant, and it looked like Orter planned to kill him. Orter remarked that it seems Kaldo has sided with Mash now. He didn't think his mind would change with just a little persuasion, so he said he was disappointed in him. Orter pointed out that he doesn't accept Mash. Kaldo explained that he never said anything like that. However, he admitted that Mash's strength is indeed formidable, and there will come a time when even Orter will be forced to acknowledge it. Orter just stared at him. After that, a week later, news about Innocent Zero's appearance at Easton Academy spread around the world. To prevent public panic, the official story was that the divine Visionaries drove Innocent Zero away. Nevertheless, many people still didn't believe that. After this incident, the Bureau of Magic focused on strengthening their security and preventing any information from spreading to the public. Mash, the only one who knew the truth, who was at the center of the event, now wrapped in a lot of information, went to the beach with his friends. Dot said that they needed to go to the beach during the summer. Mash said that he had never been there before. Finn said that he had been there, but not with friends. Dot, Mash, and Lance said the same. Lemon just stared at them, thinking about something. I'll just show it because I don't understand what it means. Finn was doubting whether they should be there because of what happened recently. Dot and Mash said, in times like this, he needs to smash watermelons. Dot brought out a slaughter melon and gave it to Mash. He threw it while Mash was speaking. Because of that, the slaughter melon hit Mash in the face and stuck to him. Dot explained that if they let it be, it will suck your blood. Finn shouted, asking why Dot would bring that there. Dot said it was because life is a continuous fight against death. Finn then asked why Dot's eyes suddenly looked hopeless. Mash suddenly slammed the melon to the ground and it shattered. He asked if they were going to eat it now. While Finn was looking at the watermelon, it seemed like he was thanking Mash for killing it. Finn got scared and complained that he couldn't swallow it. Dot yelled and said they should immediately go to the sea after eating. The scene then showed Mash and Dot enjoying playing on the beach. Finn commented that he couldn't believe Mash was Innocent Zero's son. Lance said that due to Mash's unfortunate situation, people will blame him for everything in any way. Lemon said that it wasn't Mash's fault at all. It seems like what's happening is the opposite of the peace Mash wants. Suddenly, someone spoke from behind them, saying that this is Mash's biggest test now. When they turned around, it turned out to be Headmaster Wahlberg, who was also relaxing on the beach. They wondered why he was there, so he answered them that it's summertime now. But they thought Wahlberg was injured. Wahlberg suddenly vomited blood, so they said that he really was injured. They asked why Wahlberg came there. He answered that because summer only comes once a year. But on a serious note, he said they know that Mash can never achieve the peace he longs for until they defeat Innocent Zero. He not only possesses the strongest personal magic, time, but now he also has Wahlberg's space magic. In addition, he used his forbidden magic to further strengthen his power. Calling Innocent Zero the most powerful magic user in history is not an exaggeration. Finn and the others fell silent. Furthermore, Innocent Zero is protected by Mashle's 5 siblings. Each of them is proficient in magic and is recognized as a top-class magic user in their own right. Each one of them is equal to or stronger than Wahlberg. Finn said that it's concerning. If no one stops him, he's sure that would be the end of their world. He didn't expect Innocent Zero to have such powerful capabilities. Their chances of winning are almost none, but that's if they are in a normal situation. They have an unstable element that can disregard what is normal, and that element is Mash. Mash turned his attention to them. His training has enhanced him in the following areas: instantaneous power, toughness, mental fortitude, and unbelievable strength. While they were talking, Dot continued swimming. That extraordinary strength will be their key to defeating the strongest magics. Lemon objected, saying that they can't just put Mash up against the most powerful magic user in the world. Mash told her that it's okay. He said he has a 50% chance of winning or losing, but his muscles have never lost, so he believes that increases his chances to 100%. Finn pondered over the fact that Mash's reasoning was the least scientific and the most unintelligent line of reasoning. While Lemon was blushing over there, Wahlberg added that Mash has the most important thing of all, his will with endless hope and the desire to help the weak. His heart is his true strength. Wahlberg said he is counting on Mash and hopes that Mash will create the world he imagines. Mash then said that he would take care of everything. He would beat up the bad people and bring peace to the world. He also added that he will graduate with all of them. Finn and the others were touched by his words. Lance suddenly brought up the fact that their end-off semester test is approaching and asked Mash what his plan is. Mash looked puzzled. Lance explained that if Mash fails one more time, he will be expelled from Easton. Mash said oh, and shortly after, he became nervous when he realized his situation. In the next scene, it was explained that Mash's new challenge is the end-off semester test. Lemon showed Mash the results of the tests they conducted for him to better understand his current intellect. It showed that Mash failed in magical languages, magical history, magical potions, and magical mathematics. Because of this, Mash became depressed to the point where he couldn't say anything. He was trembling as if his brain was about to explode. Lance explained that Mash was able to perfect the physical tests but really struggled with the written tests. As Mash continued to tremble, Finn noticed he was breaking down and seemed to despise studying. Mash expressed his desire to go home, but Dot cheered him up by saying they would support him. While Dot was smiling, Mash asked him if he was good at studying. Dot responded affirmatively, which seemed to astonish Mash greatly. He explained that studying is one of the easiest ways to progress towards your goals, and he thinks of it as training for every difficult job and does it a little bit every day. In addition, it's good for his record. They wouldn't want to look back at their youth with regret. Because of Dot's explanation, Mash became even more nervous and screamed out in fear. Mash expressed feeling alone in his stupidity. Dot told him not to worry, and that he would teach him. Mash then begged him to teach, his face twisted in desperation. Dot smiled at this. In the next scene, he and Lance started tutoring. They said for mathematics, they would start with the basics. They would skip the practical application and go straight to the test points. It was important that Mash memorize the formulas and how to apply them. While they were explaining, Mash was just staring blankly. They moved on to magical history, and Mash seemed to gradually get overwhelmed. By the time they reached magical linguistics, Mash began to vomit. Before long, Mash began to cry while Lance was teaching. In the end, Mash's brain exploded due to the sheer amount of information that entered it. Dot and Lemon were surprised and asked if Mash was okay. It seemed that our protagonist was out of his senses and continually getting overwhelmed. He exclaimed that he couldn't do it and would never be able to. Dot scolded him, and Lance stated that either he does it or he gets removed. In the next scene, Mash was writing. After a few hours, he tried to look at his friends. It turned out that they were all focused on him as he worked. Mash closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Suddenly, he jumped out the window, startling his friends. Lance said to let Mash be. Whatever the outcome, If Mash was going to run away from the first challenge, that was his choice. Lance said he doesn't have time to waste teaching someone who doesn't want to learn. Finn had nothing to say in response. In the end, Finn decided to look for Mash while Lance was sulking. Finn went to the forest, wondering where Mash could be. He suddenly noticed something and saw that Mash had buried himself in the ground. Mash said that he was returning himself to the world. Finn called out to Mash, startling him. He apologized, saying studying was too hard for him. Finn then pointed out that this was not the Mash he knew. The Mash he knew didn't hesitate to face the most impossible opponents. And he also added that he wanted to graduate alongside that Mash. Finn asked Mash to try again. After a moment of contemplation, Mash thanked him and emerged from the ground. He stated that he would do his absolute best. When they returned to the room, he apologized and asked to be taught again. Dot teased him, while Lance and Lemon immediately accepted Mash's apology. They ignored Dot and started studying again. Because of this, Dot apologized for what he had done. After all of that, despite Mash's poor academic skills, he managed to give his best. The day of their exam arrived, and they wished each other good luck. Mash began answering, and as time passed, he slowly became overwhelmed with the questions. Before long, the exam was over, and a very sweaty and silent Mash was shown. In the next scene, the distribution of the exam results took place. Their teacher called his name, so he approached. Suddenly, it was said that Mash had done nothing but rebel against the school's educational system. Mash explained that he didn't mean to do it. The teacher further added that his grades were always low, so it was assumed that Mash wouldn't last there. However, it turned out Mash was capable of putting effort into things. Nonetheless, she said she wouldn't call Mash's scores praiseworthy. The scores of Mash were shown, and it turned out he almost failed. In the end, Mash simply remarked that it was easy. Because of this, his friends became annoyed with him because they put so much effort into teaching him for the exam. It was explained that because of the memories of his friends, Mash was reminded of an important thing, that with the help of others, we can move forward in life. And that's where this video ends. Do you think after this our protagonist will return to battling? What is Innocent Zero doing at this time? Write your comments down below. If you want more anime and manga recaps, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on new videos.